of the Planning Commission's to order. Let the call on Commissioner Bauer for duty invocation.
Let us pray. Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and for all the blessings of this life you've given us. We humbly ask you for your guidance as we begin this meeting. Please open our hearts and our minds and renew the ties of mutual regard with which form our civic life. Grant us wisdom and clarity so that our decisions may benefit the greater good of the city of Suffolk, bringing peace and prosperity to all of its citizens. In the name of your Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ, whose peace surpasses all understanding. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks for that. Mr. Wyman, you call the roll, please.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Bauer.
Here.
Commissioner Creekmore.
Here.
Commissioner Eberwine.
Here.
Commissioner Edwards. Here. Commissioner Goodman.
Here.
Commissioner Hicks.
Here.
Vice Chairman Staylor.
Here.
And Chairman Singleton.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wine. This being the July Planning Commission meeting, it's the reorganization meeting, and at this time I will relinquish the chair to the Planning Director for election of office.
Me. Give me a second. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this point, we'll take nominations for chairman.
I'll make a nomination for chairman for Arthur Singleton, please.
Second the motion.
Any other additional comments? All right, we can take a vote by hands on Commissioner Singleton being nominated as the chairman moving forward. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? No? All right. That motion's approved by a vote of 8-0. Chairman, I'll kick it back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Wine. Thanks, Commissioners, for your confidence. The Secretary of the Commission would be Mr. Wine, and there'd be no votes needed for that. We have an opening for the Vice Chair. Take motions.
I'd like to make a motion for Mills Taylor to continue as Vice Chairman.
Second.
A second from Commissioner Hicks. Could we show of hands of all in favor of that? Any other nominations? Okay. A show of hands with. Okay. Congratulations, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
I appreciate the vote, guys.
Okay. Being that you are now the Vice Chair of this committee, you will serve as Chair of the Ordinance Committee. And I have spoken with the members of the Ordinance Committee, Commissioner Edwards, Commissioner Hicks, and Commissioner Eberwine will remain on the Committee of Ordinance, and they've enjoyed the last year, and they want to go forward.
We have lots of fun.
Okay, thank you. Are there any corrections to the minutes of the June meeting? Here none, they will stand as presented. This afternoon, we have 3 items for public hearings. Public hearings are for 30 minutes, 10 minutes for the proponents, 15 minutes for the opponents, and 5 minutes for rebuttal by the proponents. This meeting is videotaped and televised for public viewing. The first item we're dealing with today will be conditional use permit request CUP 2024-006 Scarp Solar. Mr. Wyman, will you read the caption, please?
Yes, sir. Conditional use permit, CUP 2024-006 Scarp Solar, submitted by Eric Alves Desa on behalf of White Marsh Solar LLC agent, on behalf of Nexamp Solar applicant, on behalf of SWB Associates LLC, W. Mike Lane, Davis Douglas, and Barbara S. Douglas property owners in accordance with sections 31306, 31406, and 31724 of the Unified Development Ordinance to grant a conditional use permit to establish a solar energy facility at properties located on 1390, 1398, and 1400 White Marsh Road. Zoning map 35, parcels 172, 172A, and 172B, and zoning map 45, parcel 49D. The affected area is further identified as being located in the Cypress voting borough, Zoned A Agricultural Zoning District. The 2035 Comprehensive Plan designates this area as being outside the Central Growth Area, Rural Agricultural Use District. When you act on this request, you will be acting on a resolution to present a report and recommendation to City Council relating to conditional use permit CUP 2024-006. Staff Planner Amy Mervine will present staff's report.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Planning Commissioners. This conditional use permit request before you today is to establish a solar energy facilities use on White Marsh Road, which is located outside the Central Growth Area Rural Agricultural Use District. The subject properties are zoned A agricultural and totals approximately 137 acres and consists primarily of cleared vacant land and forested areas. To the north is vacant land and residential dwellings zoned A agricultural and RR rural residential. To the south are residential dwellings and the Dismal Swamp zoned A. To the east is the Dismal Swamp zoned C for conservation. To the west is a residential dwelling zoned A and White Marsh Road. The applicant is requesting to establish a solar energy facilities use encompassing approximately 14 acres of fenced area and 10 acres of solar array area on White Marsh Road. Scarp Solar is a proposed community-scale solar energy facility as part of the Dominion Energy's shared solar program. All newly installed on-site electrical lines will be run underground with the exception of the overhead distribution lines necessary to interconnect the system to the existing distribution infrastructure along White Marsh Road. The facility will be designed and operated to prevent the direction of concentrated solar radiation or glare onto neighboring property, public roads, or other areas accessible to the public. The project has been designed to meet the required minimum setback from the adjacent public roads and residential uses by employing a 153-foot setback from White Marsh Road at its closest point and a 100-foot setback from the adjoining residential uses. The boundary of the development area will be fenced and will be marked with appropriate signage. The applicant provided visuals of the proposed landscaping and screening showing the facility's appearance post-development relative to existing conditions from the public right-of-way. The images demonstrate the approximate visual impact of the facility from the vantage point of neighboring properties and roads. Limited tree clearing is proposed, and where existing vegetation is not adequate, a landscape screening buffer will be installed. The haul route for construction and decommissioning of the solar facility is restricted to the ingress-egress of the site and going southbound on White Marsh Road to Babtown Road. The haul route is a proposed condition of the use if approved. It is staff's opinion that the site in question is appropriate for the proposed use given the location outside of the central growth area of the comprehensive plan. Therefore, staff recommends approval of conditional use permit request CUP 2024-006 with the recommended conditions. This concludes my presentation, and I will stand by for any questions after the public hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Mervine. I'm going to open the public hearing. I'd like to just state again that the public hearing is for 30 minutes, 10 minutes for the proponents, 15 minutes for the opponents, and 5 minutes for rebuttal by the proponents. Who would like to speak in favor of this request?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Tyler Rose. I'm a local land use attorney with the law firm Williams & Mullen. My business address is 222 Central Park Avenue, Suite 1700, Virginia Beach, Virginia. I'm here today on behalf of the applicant. I'd first like to thank Ms. Mervine for the comprehensive presentation and for the staff for their hard work on the application, as well as the staff's recommendation of approval. The applicant has reviewed the conditions and finds them acceptable. As noted in the staff report, this project is well sited and complies with the city's UDO and comprehensive plan. The project is located outside of the designated growth areas in the existing comprehensive plan and also in the city's proposed comprehensive plan. The project will have a relatively small footprint with only 14 acres in fenced-in area and only 10 acres under panel. And the project will be well screened from the road, and as requested by staff in their staff report, the project will utilize agricultural fencing instead of the standard chain link fencing where the project is most visible to adjacent properties and roadways. Importantly, this is not a utility scale solar project like you may have seen before. This is a small 3 megawatt community solar project that will be part of Dominion's Energy Shared Solar program. NextAmp's representative will speak a little later about the benefits of community scale solar projects and their experience with such projects. But as a community scale solar project, this will provide low-cost, emissions-free electricity to low to moderate income households in the city's surrounding communities rather than generate electricity for broader transmission to the grid. In other words, whereas large utility-scale solar projects connect to large transmission lines to get electricity onto the grid, this smaller community solar project will connect to local distribution lines that will allow local ratepayers to buy energy directly from the project at a lower cost. Additionally, the project will not have a battery storage component to it. So in conclusion, this is a well-sited project that is compliant with the city's UDO and comprehensive plan and provides a direct benefit to the city's ratepayers by providing a low-cost energy option. Therefore, we respectfully request that the Commission recommend approval of this application, and at this time I'll turn it over to NextAmp's Representative Eric Alves Dessat to continue the applicant's presentation.
Good afternoon. My name is Eric Alves Dessat. I'm the project development manager. I work for NextAmp. Our company is based in Boston, Massachusetts, and I'm representing our Mid-Atlantic office. We're responsible for projects in Maryland and Virginia. I want to say thank you to the chairman and the planning commissioners, as well as the Department of Planning, for the staff report and the comprehensive presentation. I want to echo what Tyler's remarks. I appreciate the time to be here in front of the commission to speak on behalf of the project and our company and to emphasize what sets us apart. We were founded back in 2007, so we're approaching 20 years in the solar industry. That's a long time for what's still a growing and developing field. We've been busy in the Mid-Atlantic since around 2017. We were first active in Maryland with community scale program being available in those utility territories prior to Dominion's shared solar program coming online in Virginia. But we've had a footprint and have been developing projects in the Commonwealth here for the last 4 to 5 years. This is the first time that we're here in front of the city of Suffolk, and we believe that Scarp Solar LLC, this community scale project located on White Marsh Road, is a very good example of what a community solar project is and should be. Tyler had a good point about remarking on the differences between utility scale solar. Utility scale solar often is not contiguous. It spans several parcels, hundreds of acres, and that electricity is going on high voltage, very tall transmission wires away from this region to other cities, other states, other utility territories. Whereas community scale solar is what NextAmp has done always and forever. It's been central at the heart of our business model for much of our existence. For the past 3 years, we've been the #1 provider of community scale solar in the country. We're active in roughly half of the states across the US. We only use American-made materials, American-made steel, and American-supplied panels. And what really sets us apart is that we're involved from start to finish. We're a vertically integrated company that has end-to-end experience, not just at the early stages of, diligencing, finding, and looking for a good site, developing and permitting and working with the utility on interconnection for a project at that site, but then being able to finance and execute the construction and own and operate the asset for all of its life. So as owner-operator, we are the sole point of contact today, forever and always. Community scale solar we see as a really worthwhile investment in the community because it increases the municipal tax base without burdening public services. Likewise, it serves as to be a really good neighbor. There's no noise, there's very, very little noise. You have to be very close to one area on the site to hear anything. There's no light, there's no pollution, and with that, there's also very little traffic. During operation, we're on average seeing like 1 visit per month. This sort of low impact development is ideal for a site like this where the number of residences in the immediate vicinity is very limited. Had a very pleasant conversation earlier today with the abutting neighbors to the south to introduce ourselves, the project, and the scope. And we have also been in touch with the neighbors more centrally around the project. The project is as far north and as far to the east to provide, to not just meet, but exceed the setbacks. We're not requesting any variances. As Tyler mentioned, there is no battery storage component. There is no plans for any future expansion of the site. All of that being said, we think that this is a prime candidate to bring to the community a solar project that will not just bring investment to the city of Suffolk, but allow those who pay their electricity bills through Dominion to be able to unlock savings. Like I said, Nexamp does essentially like everything under the sun, no pun intended. And one of the things that we do is we sell the energy that we produce, and we also have a customer subscription model whereby anybody who pays a Dominion bill can sign up under Nexamp to essentially have a piece of our solar farm. The electricity isn't going directly on the wires to those homes, but what does happen is a credit is applied to those customers' bills, such that they see a savings between 10 and 15% on their electricity bill. And that's one benefit that we can bring to the city of Suffolk and the residents and small businesses here by being able to build what is like low levelized cost of energy electricity producing system here compared to traditional resources in electricity generation. And at the end of the day, this is a temporary development. We have a lease with the landowners. It's been a pleasure to work with the landowners here. The landowners are interested in maintaining agricultural production and crops on this site. As such, we've designed for adequate, like a pretty big open field at the very southern end of the project that's about 200 feet wide to continue to be allowed to continue for agricultural production there. And at the end of the project, through the decommissioning plan, the decommissioning bond, the financial security that will be in place with the city, the funds will be there to decommission the project at the end of its lifetime, which involves removing all of the facilities above ground, as well as those several feet underground, and returning the site close to the condition that it's in today, and be able to return into agricultural production in the future. Very pleased to be bringing this project forward to the Planning Commission, and we're here and happy to answer any questions and provide any clarifications that we can. Thank you for your considerations.
That ends the times for the proponents. Is there anyone in the audience in opposition to this request? One is in opposition. Yes, come up, sir. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hello, gentlemen. I'm Richard Gwaldy from the Wayleville area. I am a farmer, been farming all my life, and I am in opposition to any productive agricultural land going to solar farms. There are other places in Suffolk that these farms could be put on cut over timber, land that's not productive in agriculture, and one day we're going to need this agricultural land to feed our families and our future. He says there's no pollution. There is pollution. They put stones on these things, on these pails. You can't get that stone out of there to farm that land again. They put the poles that hold them up are galvanized. They have zinc in them. That zinc poisons the soil around that area. You can't farm anything will grow there again. I'm just opposed to any agricultural land being taken out of production for solar farms. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gewaltney. Come up, young man.
Ladies, my name is Sandy Coliandro. I reside at 1882 White Marsh Road in Suffolk. I had a question which seems to have been answered, but I still have a question. Does the city of Suffolk have a truly comprehensive master development and growth plan? Because what I understand here is that this is out of the range or the reach of the plan that the city has adopted. Is that correct?
We're not taking any questions, sir. You can take the question, but we're not going to give you an answer at this time.
Okay. Anyway, let me continue. I have a couple of remarks I'd like to make. If this solar farm is going to be adopted, then why is it not a designated area suitable for this type of development or project? It is appropriate, it seems, that these are what I consider heavy industrial or commercial use projects. And in so saying, it seems to me that there should be some degree of provision or designation for this type of project. And as the gentleman just stated, there is, my understanding, that there is pollution and other problems that emanate from these solar farms. So, as a resident, I live at 1882. I live just across the road from one of these solar projects. And now, scarcely 1 mile down the road, they propose to put another one. It is needless to say that we, the residents of this neighborhood community, find that the inclusion of another of these monstrosities is unacceptable and reprehensibly detrimental to our property values and quality of life. Having said this, it should be abundantly clear to any planner or city public administrator that these solar projects do not reflect the highest and best use of our valuable land down here on this road, especially the areas that are presently agriculture and our potential residential communities. We feel that the solar projects are highly destructive to the land that they are placed upon. This is due to the severe contamination that is the byproduct of the erosion of these solar panels as they age. The erosion of these panels produce heavy metals and toxic chemicals that are washed into the soil. So the concept of the idea of utilizing this land again doesn't seem plausible. And we feel that this contamination leads to the subsequent ruination of the land and as it becomes unusable for future purposes. Now, I heard a gentleman say that this would not have an impact on the future once this contract terminated. However, it's been my understanding that it does. That needs to be investigated. Is there an environmental impact statement yet that's been filed for this? Has EPA weighed in? Has the any other agency seen fit to comment on this project? There's a lot left to be determined here before y'all decide to approve it, in my opinion. Again, I ask, is this the highest and best use of our valuable land down here on White Marsh Road? By not establishing and designating an appropriately zoned area for these projects, which are heavily industrial in nature, then due diligence to the concept of highest and best use of our land is being ignored, neglected, and abandoned, and that's my opinion. As a result, we have what seems to be spot zoning. And this is not the only place. We got it around on Hoosier Road as well. I think that as a result of this type of spot zoning, the customary order of the day regarding these types of projects seems to be spots. Just spot them anywhere you get ready. Proper planning and zoning practices should always be the primary objective of this Planning Commission. Make a responsible decision and help preserve the land in our community by disallowing any future construction of these polluting and contaminating solar projects, except in the areas where they can be properly and appropriately placed as to their industrial purpose. So let's be careful what we do to our land. And I'm like that gentleman that's been a farmer. I was a farmer all my life as well. We respect and love the land, and we try to make it useful for future generations. If you're going to contaminate it, if that be the case, then that is a non-starter. That should not even be under consideration. So as a member of this community, I thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. We have 6 minutes. Anyone else in opposition?
Good afternoon. My name is Jason Wooldridge. I reside at 4580 Desert Road here in the city of Suffolk. Challenge you all to turn around and look at the Suffolk City seal. It has peanuts. It has agricultural on it. What we're talking about doing right now is taking agriculture off of that seal. Solar farms do not allow for us to go back and put farming back on that land. We've heard from 2 different farmers already to talk about the pollution that happens when you put solar farms in, and then we're supposed to go back and take this out. I'll submit to you something economically. Right now, if you want to start yourself a farm, you're doing fairly well to find something about $10,000 an acre to put through. Then you have to buy equipment, you have to buy feed and seed to put those out, and then you might make a profit within the first 7 years. If you have to remove a solar farm from that same land, do you think that's economically viable to start a farm afterwards? Yes, the answer is no. Absolutely, you cannot. So once we get rid of this agricultural land, it is gone. I'm not a farmer by trade. I own some land out in Suffolk that I live on. I rent part of it out to a farmer. I'm an engineer by trade, an electrical engineer by trade. Things that work in the laboratory don't always scale up into real life. Solar power right now is only 20% efficient at best. Most of the panels that you see on people's houses started off at a 10% efficiency, and they're drastically dropping each year that they get used. So you're not going to get the return that you think you are out of the solar panels that we have today. You're going to invest more as technology develops and makes them more efficient, cycling money over, cycling whatever we're putting out in these fields over. It's just not the right application for what we're talking about right now. There are studies that show that the concentration of these solar fields actually go against what you're trying to do by going green, by going solar. Because it's only at best 20% efficient, creates what's known as the heat island effect. The field actually reflects 80% of the energy that the sun does in the form of heat around that field, raising the average temperature around that field from 3 to 7 degrees Celsius, okay? We're talking about the world ending if we raise 2 degrees Celsius. We're putting something in that's going to raise that area 3 to 7 degrees Celsius. What that does, at the end of the day, when the sun goes away and we stop producing power, heat air rises rather rapidly. That causes updrafts. We've seen lots of storms this week. Updrafts are the results of intensifying those storms. The more we put these solar farms in, the more heat island effect we're going to create, the more dangerous that we are affecting our weather patterns right here. Solar has a future as far as green energy goes, but it's not in these applications. Thank you for your time.
Is anyone else to speak in opposition?
Hello, my name's Colette Coliandro, and I'm Sandy's spouse. I'm a resident on White Marsh Road, and I'm doing this secondarily. I have another neighbor that lives across from the project on Kempsville Road that's already there, and I understand that this is a smaller project than that one. That one has the high capacity transmitting. But I know that my neighbor lives directly across the street from that and is physically ill from the EMFs that are submitted. She's been going to the doctor to try to find out what is wrong with her, and she has videoed. Now, this project may not be that strong, as he says it's smaller and they're underground lines and stuff like that, but there is an effect to the neighbors. And she videoed on Facebook. She was laying in her bed, and the vibrations and the whirring noise in the middle of the night is very loud. She could hear and feel the vibrations through her pillow, okay? I don't know if she's spoken to anybody in the city about her reaction, but I know it has affected the quality of life of that family. So because of that, I'm very guarded about more projects going up on agricultural land on our road. Thank you.
Anyone else in opposition? We have 1.5 minutes left.
Hello, my name is David Franklin. I'm a little further down White Marsh Road, so might not be applicable to me, but I just worry about the danger with flying debris. I came in a little late. I don't know if they discussed that, but I used to live in the Midwest, and I've seen tornadoes before, and I know they say they have all these safety standards and whatnot that they're built to, but I mean, a simple Google image of, a tornado, and you can see, where it's ripped through some fields like this. And then I just find that concerning, seeing how you all just rezoned the land across the street to put in a bunch of housing, and then you have a bunch of houses north in the East Suffolk Garden District or whatnot. So I'm a little concerned about that. A tornado hits. We had one a couple years ago, pretty much right down White Marsh, and then went off into the downtown. So again, if that rips through there, debris sends flying, you got, again, a future, mixed zoning right there, and then of course that neighborhood north of it. So I'm a little worried on that aspect. So sounds a little risky to me, and I think until you have a little bit better of a plan of what's going forward, you might have blood on your hands. I don't know. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. That ends the time for the opposition. Now we'll have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Good afternoon again. Thank you for the time to respond. A lot of the concerns that were addressed here this afternoon are concerns that we hear with these projects quite frequently. They have been well studied. There are a lot of resources being dedicated to these specific issues. First, to address the contamination issue, there was a large study and report done with Virginia Tech talking about these type of panels, talking about the materials that are in them, the recyclability, the ability to recycle 90% of the panels. None of the components within these panels are in a liquid state. There is no leakage. They are built to withstand golf ball sized hail. 50 tons worth of pressure on them, front and back encapsulation remains intact. So there is limited risk in terms of direct contamination and leakage with these panels. And again, if you guys are interested in any type of follow-up with respect to any of these studies and materials I'm citing here, we're happy to provide those as well. Additionally, responding to the highest and best use and spot zoning element of this, and this being not allowed under the current zoning, it is a conditional use in agricultural zone. We have complied with all of the requirements of the conditional use designation in the agricultural district as stated in the staff report. Additionally, there was an environmental report done on the project. There was no recommended remediation efforts or any signs of contaminants on the property. In terms of panel upgrades and technologies, the project is monitored by NextAmp continuously in terms of degradation of panels. My conversation with Eric, NextAmp's representative, just minute ago said that they do consider improving technology to ensure that the project is living up to the proper output and serving the community as expected. Additionally, the EMF concerns, that is another issue that has been widely studied, and there has been no findings that I'm aware of in these studies of any kind of EMF radiations. Again, this will not be close in terms, we're meeting all the required setbacks for residential adjacent properties. So we believe we're compliant with the zoning ordinance there as well. In terms of natural disasters, these projects and solar panels are designed to withstand any nature, any variety of environmental impacts. If the event is severe enough, surely there would maybe some impacts, but I think that would be a kind of a broader concern for the area rather than just this site as well. So I would like to, with my 2 minutes remaining, I would like to provide the property owner an opportunity just to give his thoughts on the project. But again, thank you for your time and consideration, and we would again request a recommendation of approval for this application. So thank you very much.
Excuse me. Good afternoon. My name is Doug Davis. I live in Fairfield and Virginia Beach. I am one of the property owners. My partner property owner, we bought that land about 20 years ago. We have always been very sensitive to its environmental use. I have to say that working with the solar people to try to maximize the remaining agricultural land has been a pleasure. They've done a lot to allow us to maximize the agricultural land, considering width of equipment, access to that lower field down there. All of those things, they were very helpful in design. Because we've been concerned about the environmental use of that land, we're conflicted a little bit ourselves, but that property has sewer in its northwest corner. It's got homes already zoned across the way. In the next 20 or 30 years, there's going to be a lot of pressure on that property to be non-agricultural. We thought about that and thought with this project, 20 or 30 years from now, when none of us are going to be here, certainly I won't, this body will have another opportunity to see what the highest and best use for that property will be, because it will be open space again. So that was a driving consideration for us. 30 years from now, it'll be open space and others might have the opportunity to put a ball field there or some other use that will separate the development across the road from the sensitive areas of the National Wildlife Refuge. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. That concludes the time for this public hearing. I will now close the public hearings. Commissioners, questions, comments, or motion?
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of questions. Would one of the representatives of the company maybe come forward? This deals with the sharing of the qualifying use for the property owners in the vicinity for getting reduction in their electric bills. I think you mentioned there was a process that they would go through Dominion. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and who would qualify for this?
Happily. Yeah, I want to clarify that it's not through Dominion, but it's signing up to be a NextAmp subscriber.
Yeah.
So as we are the owner and operator of the system, we own the electricity, and as we sell that to Dominion, based on the cost that it takes to build a solar project, something that generates electricity that is usable by the Dominion grid at a cheaper cost than a traditional power plant, fossil fuel, natural gas or coal, and knowing that community scale solar can be seen adversely by the communities that it resides in, we have voluntarily set up a subscription process by which Dominion ratepayers, Dominion customers, residents and small businesses in the community can sign up to be a NextAmp subscriber. That customer, that homeowner, will continue to pay their bill through Dominion, but NextAmp will subsidize that with a credit on a monthly basis. Historically, across the country, that has been a 10 to 15% reduction on a monthly bill.
So once again, so they would sign up through your company, and then they would see the reduced amount, the reduction amount on their Dominion billings once they had signed up for the program?
There's no interaction or change with the Dominion bill. The Dominion bill stays consistent, but separately, NextAmp mails a credit or wire transfers a credit.
Credit being a check or access to an account, et cetera, for that
Yeah.
amount. And roughly how many from this particular project would you think would qualify for that?
That's a good question, and we can, I can check and let you know. I don't know that number off the top of my head.
I mean, just a round number, is it 100 people, 50, or?
On the order of a few hundred.
A few hundred?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have for you. I do have a question for city staff maybe, and I see our traffic engineer out there, so if anybody has any other questions, maybe before we go to the second.
I need him to expound on who qualifies.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that. What persons would qualify for this, and what range? Is there some range in the area?
Anybody who has a Dominion bill, anybody who's a Dominion customer. So that can be in the city of Suffolk, that can be outside of the city of Suffolk. We can also take back to our team and have conversations about providing a preferential window or an upfront waiting period for that to be only open to city of Suffolk residences at the start. And if it fills up with city of Suffolk residences as the subscribers to this community solar project, then there are no qualifications of who can sign up as long as you're a Dominion customer. And I know that there are some folks in this jurisdiction who their electricity is provided through a smaller co-op, and unfortunately they would not be eligible, a different company.
Two questions. Question one, did you have a meeting with the adjacent property owners and the community at large to kind of give them a thorough analysis of what you just told us.
So there's two abutting residences, and those two residences are really the only ones in the direct vicinity.
Right.
And either myself or the landowners for the subject property, have spoken with both about the project.
But you
in
didn't talk
advance
to
of
like
today.
the Skeeter Town Civic League or Lake Kennedy Civic League, all the other civic leagues up. Because for listening to it, this is supposed to be community scale. We know it's going to be houses across the street, but listening to you, it basically going to fill up about time the other houses across the street because you said a couple of hundred. You said.
Like I said, what I said is that I don't have an exact number for you. I know that the amount of electricity that's going to be produced by this solar facility on an annual basis is enough to power 400 to 500 homes. In terms of how many customers could subscribe, I don't have an exact number, but I can certainly get back to you.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. That sounds better. And that sounds, think about it like this. We have to take serious that people came out here today to voice their concerns. And I didn't hear anybody say anything that I would say was outlandish with their concerns. So if you're going to open up something and say this is going to be community scale, I think it should have more of a community conversation, and I think it should have a broader reach for the community if we're going to give up XYZ acres of land. I know it's outside the growth zone, but, as it goes. That's what gets me to my last question. You said earlier that you've been doing this 20 years. Is that correct?
Our company's been in existence since 2007,
So let me ask you this question. So you all are kind of on the forefront of this. Have you all had a chance to decommission one of these fields? Because it's been 20 years. I don't know how long leases last, but have you all had a chance to kind of decommission a field in this, let's say in the last 5 to 6 years?
We have decommissioned several, but I'm talking about a small number, again, because of the timelines of their operations. And those facilities would have been ones that were built in the early 2010s, mid-2010s. At that time, there weren't even projects of this size getting built really anywhere in the country. For the most part, it was rooftops or facilities that were in the 5-acre range. And the ones that we have had to decommission, we've had to decommission because of a shorter sunset window with a municipality. So we have some experience with it, but not yet in the state of Virginia or in the Mid-Atlantic region.
Right. In those scenarios, was the land able to go back to farming?
In those cases, it wasn't farmland to begin with, but it was returned to a state that was relative to the condition that it was before, and the municipalities where that land resides, they were smooth. Everybody was content with the end product. We also expound that, like I said, we're the nation's leading provider of community scale solar. We work in a lot of different states. One of those states, our biggest state, and has been our biggest state for the last 2 years, is Illinois. In Illinois, they have what's called an agricultural impact mitigation agreement. That is a state mandate that any community scale solar project any solar project that is built on agricultural land must respect that land in its development, in its design, throughout the period of construction, and for the decades of operations and maintenance, such that it can be decommissioned by Nexamp. So at the end of this project, it is not for whoever owns the land or for whoever buys the land afterwards to decommission the project. That's our responsibility, and we put up a financial security in the form of a surety bond with the city to make sure that there are funds there. In the state of Illinois, that impact agreement is shared with the landowners. It's signed well in advance of construction. And I use that as an example because that is our biggest market. That is our standard. We apply the same amount of rigor that we do in Illinois, where we're state mandated, to all of our sites across the country. So amongst our peers and amongst the industry, we truly care and have a commitment to sustainability such that we embody in all of our practices to make sure that everything we're doing now is going to allow for a successful decommissioning at the end.
Thank you.
Bauer?
Yeah, I had a comment, not a question. Thank you.
You hold your question. Does anyone have any questions while he's at the podium?
Sorry.
I do have a follow-up.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. The process, how do you notify the citizens of our city that this is available? I know I was initially thinking that this was going to benefit the immediate neighborhood around this. But how will you let the citizens of our city, and I was thinking adjacent to this property, know of the process? Or how will you designate who gets notified of this?
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a good question, and also to build on Commissioner Edwards' question as far as like the community engagement aspect. We submitted our application for the conditional use permit February 29th. So it's only been a few months since then. It's gone through the Land Use Council. This is our first opportunity to have any public input. We're very open to working with the city of Suffolk and would actually lean on your local expertise and your constituency as to what would be the best, what are good ideas and good venues to get the word out. If this successfully moves forward today and to the city council, there are still likely 2 years prior to this project getting built. So it's really in that time that we start our community engagement efforts. At NextAmp, like I said, we do more than just the development and the construction and the owning and operating, but we have a whole team that's dedicated to energy sales, customer subscriptions, and handling that side of the business. And we can connect them with folks here at the city to make sure that it's tough for me to speak to the potential subdivision and like community homes that are going to be built across the street just because I don't know the timeline of that project. But if there's a way for us to marry the timelines, that would be obviously an opportunity worth seeking, and we'd be happy to talk through that together.
Commissioner Bowers?
Yes, that was, I don't have a question, I just wanted to make a comment. I believe what you're saying, and I think that if, and I'm glad that if this project does go through, that it will be NextAmp. I think you've done a great presentation and answered a lot of concerns. That being said, I do have to go back to what Mr. Gwaltney said when he came up about preserving agricultural land. Some folks had brought up, or one public comment was about, do we have a plan for where these things go? And it's my hope that with the comprehensive plan that's coming up on the docket, that's going to outline more about the orderly place of where things go. And some of the ag land is going to be going away with that. As far as the highest and best use, I don't know if there's necessarily a dollar and cents you can put on what this property is used for over the next 20 to 30 years, but the owner said that he doesn't know if he'll be here, but I certainly plan on being here. And, well, God willing. And I think I just would hate to see it not be farmed again. That's one of the problems, unfortunately, is that solar, whether it be utility or community scale, they're looking for the same type of land that quality farmland provides. It needs to be flat, it needs to get sunlight. It does have to have that proximity to substations, or, that matters. And the problem that was brought up about decommissioning, this is still relatively new. The long-term effects are still somewhat unknown. I understand taking risks in the spirit of progressive thinking and renewable energy, but I just don't feel like I can support doing it on ag land at this point. But if it does go through, I'm glad your company gets the project. So thanks.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner?
I did have a question for the city, for the city staff, and it's really as much of a comment as anything, and I see a traffic engineer back there, sitting back there, so I can zero in on you. The real question was, when I went by and reviewed the project and looked at it, and then I drove the route that has been determined for the access to the site for the construction phase, I was pretty much horrified by the condition of White Marsh Road before you got to Babtown Road and the curves, and the fact that it does mention something about school buses doing the same time. But I would strongly suggest that the city relook, if this does go through, relook at that path, because that is one dangerous road for bringing in a tractor trailer with equipment on it or whatever. So that's just, take a look at that again if this does go through. One of the other comments I had maybe was that, I asked Kevin this earlier today, and that was about the property right directly across. I guess it would be to the west of this, across the road from Pitch Kettle. We did approve a subdivision. I think it's 380 homes on the piece right across from that. So this will have an impact eventually on 380 homes that will be across the road from this particular site. So it will have some impact on some homes other than the two that were mentioned here. So that's all I have to say.
Commissioners? Comments or a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I mean, I need to say something. This is my frustration now. So where do we have solar? I mean, we can't have solar in the agricultural district because we don't want to, take away farmland. So where are we supposed to put it? So are we just not in the solar game at all? Because we're saying we're just gonna, keep the farmland. The truth of the matter is this. According to our comprehensive plan, the farming communities in our city is not a thriving industry. And we keep making public policy for an industry just not thriving. I mean, the land is, we're saying we want to keep land for historical reasons. And we're going to keep this agricultural because this is what Suffolk has always been forever. And because it's been like this forever, we have to keep it like this forever because it's on the emblem. Yeah, Constance Wolf is, and also a Union soldier is also on the emblem, but nobody's going to war, looking like the guy on the emblem. It's part of history. I'm not saying you get rid of every piece of land for agriculture, but what I'm saying is, I think there should be a consistency. We should have a way of somebody come up here if it follows the comprehensive plan in the UDO, for them to have a real shot. So if we open up the door saying, hey, that we don't want to do solar at all, that is a worthwhile conversation. And you all know how I feel about White Marsh Road, and we're not going down that road again because I lost that vote. So we're gonna move on from it. So you know how I feel about White Marsh Road. But yeah. Well, thank you for your comments, Commissioner Bowell, because it made me think. You really did. Now, all right. And I don't have a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion. After all that?
I just have a long comment. I don't have a motion. Well, okay. For the sake of starting a conversation on a motion, I move for denial of the conditional use permit.
Second it.
Motion for denial. Any discussion on the motion?
Under discussion, Commissioner Edwards' question about where will we put solar? because I got other reasons that I don't want it to be there. But where would we put solar farms is a major, major question, and we really at some point need to discuss that because of that reason, because the viable place to put it is on the unused agricultural land. That's the viable place to put it. Where else can we put it? I don't know where we need to have that conversation at. Maybe in the ordinance committee meeting, but we really do need to discuss. I mean, where you gonna put it if you don't put it there? I mean, I'm not saying there in terms of White Marsh Road, but there in terms of on agricultural land that's not being used for anything else.
Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Mr. Wyman, will you call for the vote, please?
Hold on, make sure. Yes is, hey, we better do this. Yes is no, right?
Yes means no.
All right.
Commissioners, please vote. Mr. Chairman, the motion is approved by a vote of 8-0.
No.
Yes is no.
Oh, yes.
Yes, yeah.
The motion passes for denial.
Motion passes for
And it will go to City Council on August 21st with the motion from this body for denial. Okay? Everybody's in agreement? Okay. We move to the next item on our agenda is the conditional use request CUP 2024-011 machine shop. Mr. Wine, will you read the caption, please?
Yes, sir. Conditional use permit request CUP 2024-011 machine shop submitted by Jesse Johnson Jr., attorney, on behalf of Raymond Wayne Stevens, applicant and property owner, on behalf of Mary Catherine Benya Stevens, property owner, in accordance with sections 31306, 31406, and 31707 of the Unified Development Ordinance to grant a conditional use permit to establish a machine shop on property located at 1617 Freeman Mill Road, zoning map 63, parcel 54 star A. The affected area is further identified as being located in the Whaleyville voting borough, zoned A, agricultural zoning district. The 2035 comprehensive plan designates this area as part of the rural agricultural use district. When you act on this request, you'll be acting on a resolution to present a report and a recommendation to City Council relating to conditional use permit CUP 2024-011. Once again, Staff Planner Amy Mervine will present staff's report.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman and Planning Commissioners. This conditional use permit request before you today is to establish a machine shop use on Freeman Mill Road located outside the growth area, rural agricultural use district. The subject property is located in the A agricultural zoning district and is approximately 2.3 acres. The surrounding properties consist of residential dwellings and agricultural land zoned A. The applicant is proposing to establish a machine shop use on property located at 1617 Freeman Mill Road. Aerial Services is a home-based retail internet catalog mail order business. The approximate 6,300 square foot metal utility building, as noted unread on this slide, is located to the rear of the property and will be used for the machine shop use. Aircraft parts will be disassembled, inspected, and at times cleaned for return service. Engine frame and propeller parts needing repairs are delivered or shipped to subcontractors for welding or machine and recertification. Used aircraft will be stored and disassembled within the building, and all work and storage will be contained inside the building. The hours of operation is proposed between the hours of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday and 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturdays. The applicant's narrative states that this is an internet-based business where parts are shipped and delivered to customers. Customers will not drop off or pick up parts at the site. Commercial trucks are not used for pickup or delivery of aircraft parts at this location. packaged parts are delivered to the various shippers or customers, and purchase of additional aircraft parts will be picked up by Mary Catherine or Ray Stevens in their vehicles or trailers. It is staff's opinion that the site in question is appropriate for the proposed use given the surrounding agricultural uses and the machine shop use to take place completely within the existing metal shed. Therefore, staff recommends approval of CUP 2024-011 with the recommended conditions. I also wanted to just make a clarification. In this, staff received several public comments for the machine shop use on Freeman Mill Road. I had spoken with the applicant, and she just notified me that it was proposed for approval of this, but it does say they put it in the wrong one. They put it for Scarp Solar, but the address and the description all refer to the machine shop use. So if you see that in the staff report, that's why, but it is, I just wanted to make a note that and it just got put in the wrong public comment on our system. But this concludes my presentation, and I will stand by for questions after the public hearing.
Thanks, Ms. Mervine. We will now open the public hearing. Who would like to speak in favor of this request?
My name's Adam McClellan. I run Windwrench Aviation Services at Suffolk Airport. I have been doing this along with my father for the last almost 20 years now. The vast majority of general aviation fleet is around 50 years plus in age. So salvage parts are very necessary to us. And I really like the idea of having a local source instead of having to go off to the internet to get those parts. And that's all I have to say on that. Thank you, sir.
Anyone else to speak in favor of this request?
Hello, Raymond Stevens, and I am the applicant there. I'm a little nervous, but I'll try to keep it short. And usually projects are voted on before, we actually have our building built, and we kind of got the cart before the horse, and now we're applying for the use permit. And during this process and talking to neighbors, their biggest concern is traffic, and I just learned today through my right-of-way owner, they're concerned about signs. And I just wanted to put it out there that I've heard my neighbors' concerns about traffic, and our business plan does not involve, the general public coming to our facility and or, all of our shipping, we take our products to the shipper, just because on our driveway right away, there's 4 homeowners, including myself, and we get the daily deluge of Amazon, FedEx, UPS, and occasional USPS, many times a week. That are all personal deliveries to me and my current neighbors, and none of them involving our business. And we did get an SBA loan for our building towards, and we've got pretty much our life savings invested in our business. And if we don't get our use permit, it's gonna pretty much put us in a financial, pretty much take our life savings, I think. All right, thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Is anyone else to speak in favor of this request?
Afternoon. I'm Jack Hall. I live across the road from Ray. I help him with this little business. I enjoy it. It gets me out of the house because my wife, I have to take care of her. I very much enjoy working in that machine shop. I'm learning a lot of things too. So it's enjoyable. They don't make a lot of money, but I don't worry about that. I don't care about the money. Sorry, Ray. But it's not bothering anybody. I have more packages delivered to my home by my granddaughters than he has in a week. They do it in a day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this request? Now we get the boss.
My name is Mary Catherine Stevens. I live at 1617 Freeman Mill Road. And what I have to say about this is this business has been a lifelong business for my husband and his family. I am the one that applied for the business license, applied for all the building permits, which our home and our commercial building that houses the airplane parts. Everything was done with permits, and I was just unaware that I needed to get a conditional use permit. Had I known that, it would have been applied for. When we moved into the house, I did get a business license because at the time we did not have the airplane parts at the house because the building wasn't built yet. The parts were housed at various airports. We had tried to locate this business at an airport, but were unable to do that. We attempted to do it at Suffolk Airport. We applied to be able to build a hangar. That is still on hold. That's why we decided that we would just do this at our home. We tried to do it in Franklin, and we were unable to do that in Franklin because Franklin Airport is actually in Isle of Wight. So this was the best option that we could see, that we could come up with. We ship parts internationally. It's not just locally. I know that Adam McClellan came up and talked about having a local source. We deliver parts to him. He's never been to our facility. So we occasionally will have friends of mine or my husband's that come to the house, but no more than any of the other neighbors do. And so I am speaking in favor of actually asking you to approve this conditional use permit. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Stevens. We got 3 minutes left. Anyone else? Seeing none. Is anyone in opposition?
Good afternoon. I'm Charles Thomas. I live at 4628 Desert Road. My father owns the property at 1615 Freeman Mill. It's the main driveway everybody uses to come through the properties to get to their property. I have a few concerns which Mr. Ray Stevens has talked to me about, and Mary Catherine, they're good people. We had some problems when we first had their house built because I put a lot of money into the road, and they tore it up. Not only them, but I guess the guy's name was Justin. He lived beyond them. They messed the road up also. So I had to fight them basically to fix the road. I have pictures, but I don't think you need to see them. But my concern is road maintenance, signs on the property, because at one time he had a sign on my property at Freeman Mill Road. He took that down. My main concern is he has a dumpster truck that comes in. It's a big, heavy machine. He has other trailers coming in, and he's had airplanes go back there too. So my concern is my road. There is a farm road to the left because when the property was approved, it had to have a circle so the fire truck could get all the way around. So there is an easement for the farm road that goes off to the left. But the main road, which is my property, I prefer that he went down with that dumpster truck on the farm road and cut over through his property. And that should cost a little bit of money. I'm willing to give them time on that to get that up, because I understand that they do have a lot of money invested in that. And I don't want to mess them up with that. I do like the people, but I have concerns. If this is sold, how will the future owner, if he wants to put in a different type of business, will that affect my property value and the rights to my road? So what I'm proposing is, if they do this, because he says he's not going to put in a lot of traffic through my road, he will go down that farm road and cut over. So those are my main concerns. He says there won't be traffic. That was a concern. Road maintenance, where all 4 properties have to maintain the road that goes down my road, the main road, which he's been very good at keeping up. So if we can get something to where there's nothing, big signs in the front of my yard or anything like that, I have no objections. But how would I be protected from future owners for somebody putting a bigger business in and thinking they can go down my road? That is my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else to speak in opposition?
Good afternoon, Richard Gwaltney, and I live on Freeman Mill Road, and I feel for the Stevens. They seem like very fine people, and I don't want to come on as a bad neighbor, but it's hard to believe that somebody would build a 5,000 square foot warehouse with not having the proper permits to run a business there. I don't know if it was built under agricultural use. How in the world would you build a building so big without the proper permits and building permit? What's going to come in there next, just as he said? What's the next business going to be built down the road? If we approve this one for industrial, can we go to the next person and do the same thing, and y'all are going to approve that? These things don't need to be approved. Shouldn't have been started in the first place. I really feel for that family if they've got their life savings tied up in it. They made that big a mistake to go there and do that. But they went all over 2 or 3 different counties and airports trying to get this done and couldn't get it done. That doesn't mean that we should, on Freeman Mill Road, give them a piece of property, a building that large, to put a warehouse and a business in. And the traffic on Freeman Mill Road, come down Freeman Mill Road. Potholes, you meet a truck, you got to get off the road, you're going to hit a pothole half the time, break an axle almost. It's terrible. The branches are hanging in the road. We certainly don't need the extra traffic. It's not as bad as White Marsh Road, but it's getting bad. But again, I feel for the Stevens family. I don't want to come on as a bad neighbor, but I don't want to see a precedent set to put industrial businesses in the community, right, in the rural area. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Anyone else speak in opposition? That ends the time for opposition. Open it for Mr. Stevens for rebuttal.
Yes, and let's take it line by line here. And the signs that we're talking about is I put a sign out there, help wanted, up by the road. But we ended up moving it across the road to the neighbor's property. And actually it was in the right of way that belongs to the city, but we still moved it across the street to the other side of the road with permission of our neighbor's property. Put it off of their property. And we have no need for business signs. We're an internet-based business, and if the CUP wants to be amended that says, you know, no signage on the building or road front, I have no problem with that. And it's my understanding that the permit does not convey to new property owners, so there's no issue. If we sell the property, the permit dies with the sale of the property. That's my understanding. And actually, I believe we, compared to our neighbors that have, you know, husbands and wives and girlfriends that go to work every day, and we're actually working at home, I would make a case that we have less traffic on our shared road and driveway and Freeman Mill Road compared to our 3 neighbors. And all of our building permits, business license were in order, you know, in proper time for building the building and starting the business. All right, thank you.
It's 3 more minutes for rebuttal. Any other rebuttal comments? Hearing none. Close the public hearings. Commissioners, questions, comments, or a motion?
I make a motion for approval of CUP 2024-011.
Second the motion.
Any discussion on the motion?
I have a question, and I don't know if I should have done that first, sorry. I didn't see it in the narrative. How long has that 6,300 square foot building been there? Was that noted and I missed that?
Let's see.
Sir, Mr. Stevens,
Sorry.
sit down, please.
It's noted. Give me 1 second. A building permit was pulled for its construction relatively recently. Let's see. I want to get you that date.
We did have the proper permit to.
That is correct.
Okay. That was my only question.
Any other discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chairman,
And the road that they're referring to, that is my road that the young man was referring to, that's a private road? Freeman Mill, I know, is a city road. But they have a joint driveway, and that's
It's
only...
a private ingress egress, so yes.
Okay.
It's not a publicly maintained road.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, that's our question before we vote. Yes means yes.
In this case, we're voting for approval, and yes means yes.
Keep me on my toes.
Mr. Wyman, you go over the vote, please.
Yes. Commissioners, please vote. Mr. Chairman, the motion is approved by a vote of 8-0.
Mr. and Mrs. Stevens, congratulations. This will go to City Council on August 21st with a motion from this body for approval. And this body will stand in adjournment for 15 minutes before we go to the next item. The August meeting of the Planning Commission will now come to order. We will now continue our public hearings. The next item on our agenda is item C, City of Suffolk Comprehensive Plan Update. Mr. Wine, will you give us a brief comment?
Yes, sir. So this is the City of Suffolk Comprehensive Plan Update and presentation of the Suffolk 2045 Comprehensive Plan. This particular item is submitted by the City of Suffolk, Department of Planning and Community Development, on behalf of the Planning Commission. Consideration shall be given to the recommendation for and the adoption of the City of Suffolk Comprehensive Plan Update, Suffolk 2045, as submitted by the Department of Planning and Community Development. When you act on this request, you'll be acting on a resolution to amend the comprehensive plan for 2035 and adopt Suffolk 2045, City of Suffolk Comprehensive Plan. Our Comprehensive Planning Manager, Keith Kennedy, will kick off the presentation here, and he will be accompanied by representatives from across city departments.
All right, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. As stated, this is a public hearing for this important project. Looking forward to sharing this presentation with you. And again, I will be joined this afternoon by the folks who helped us out last month. Paul Rattel, Public Utilities, Robert Lewis, Public Works, Gary Jones, Public Facilities and Buildings, and Christy Fisher will be standing in today for Mark Furlow, and I believe Dina Holt will be standing in for Kevin Hughes. So thank you all for being here, and thank you all again for the opportunity. Again, a summary type of presentation today, much like we shared with you at the work session last month. We think it's important, again, given the magnitude of this project, to provide this kind of presentation for the benefit of the commission, but also for the public who may not have seen that presentation as we get ready to adopt this plan and move forward with the steps around implementation. We will be making the summary presentation today, and then, of course, standing by to take any questions that may come up from the public or from the commission. A good place to start, I think, is this graph, which we've been getting a lot of use out of the past couple of years. For today, I think it makes the point that this has been about a 2.5-year process with a really significant commitment of time and resources from the city and the community. And it's been a step-by-step process. It has sort of a beginning, middle, and end, and builds on the progress that you make along the way, preparing, analyzing, identifying options, and then finally putting a draft plan out there, and even building through the public engagement process on things that you hear and testing ideas as you go along. Again, in some degrees, starting with the end in mind, what did we set out to do? That'll be the first thing I want to talk about today. What are our guiding values? What's our goal with the purpose of this update of the plan? We want to respond to the last conversation that we had with the Planning Commission and Council and talk about the changes that were made since the joint work session on May 1st. Again, keeping in mind that this isn't a new plan, it builds on, it's actually the fourth in a series of comprehensive plans that have managed growth in the city of Suffolk. So we'll talk about this plan as compared to the one that's currently in place, and again, why we think it's important to move forward with the current plan. We'll talk about really the bottom line, implementing this plan, and what are some things that are kind of waiting in the wings, action steps to get started on once the plan is adopted. And finally, we'll identify a couple of dates for you as we move through the adoption process. Comprehensive plans are, of course, required of cities, counties, and towns in Virginia, reviewed about every 5 years. They're very general in nature and have this really unique purpose, the only document that the Planning Commission and Council really consider, to put a coordinated plan of development for the whole community. Plan for the physical development, particularly around land use and infrastructure. That's really our goal, is to keep that top of mind and have that document in place as the community grows and changes. Our current plan, 2035, was actually adopted in April 2015, so we're ready for an update, and I'll talk about some of the changes that this plan will address. very fortunate in Suffolk that we are building on earlier plans. The guiding values that we recommend to adopt in this plan are very similar to what was identified even in the early days of this series of plans. You'll see these themes as really critical to all that we do, and clearly they involve some choices and some trade-offs, as you consider the opportunities and challenges that the city faces. So talking a little bit about this most recent set of revisions, back when we, in this room, sat with the Planning Commission and City Council in a work session, we're recommending a couple of changes in key areas. So I want to spend some time with you this afternoon to identify those. We've made a revision to the growth area boundary. We've made, we think, some important language changes to the recommendation on village area plans, specifically thinking about the Suffolk Peninsula area. We've added some detail to the recommendation around really a top issue for Suffolk around transportation and traffic congestion. And finally, we're reacting a little bit to some of your reactions, seeing the new designation for employment centers. We want to unpack that a little bit and explain what's behind that and what we're recommending. But starting first with the changes in the growth area boundary, this actually started in January and February with a very conceptual map. You all may remember some blobs on a map talking about areas that we wanted to consider together with the community as expansions, potential expansions for the growth area boundary. So we actually had 5 options at that time. This map shows those as proposed in February 2024. And this is the map that was actually presented in the last round, the 4th round of public engagement, and presented to the joint session, May 2024. And this is the plan that we're actually recommending at this point in the process. So we've done a pretty significant reduction in the growth area boundaries and reduced those essentially to 2 areas, one connecting the central and northern growth area and expansion out on the 460 corridor going forward. So significant reduction, again, responding to some concerns about growing into the agricultural areas of the city. Is that much growth area actually needed for this particular time? And so that's the recommendation that we're bringing forward. We also talked about the recommendations around the historic villages. We're recommending that we update the plans for these areas. They're quite dated, and a lot has changed since some of the challenges and opportunities were identified back at that time. So we're recommending some new language here, specifically around one of the big challenges, and the Ordinance Committee even heard about this a little bit earlier today in your meeting. One of the big challenges in the villages is around the type of commercial development that they saw when they originally developed and what is currently in today's market. So we want to make sure that we recognize that traditional neighborhood focused commercial uses are particularly appropriate for many of the villages, and we want to make sure that we're really clear that that is what we're recommending as part of the scope of updating those plans, and that, of course, could then be translated into zoning and other types of recommendations for the historic villages. We, again, have also mentioned the importance of transportation investments and traffic congestion, growing traffic congestion in the city. We believe we've matured as a community to a point where we really need to recommend a dedicated effort around transportation planning. So we've detailed in the plan Now, on page 100, you'll find this language detailing what we think the purpose of that plan is and how it should be executed, and it'll really complement the broader approach to the transportation section in the current plan. Finally, I want to talk about the employment centers that were recommended on the plan. As you all know, we took a pretty significant step forward in proposing a more detailed future land use plan. We developed additional categories. We spent quite a bit of time in the community outlining that recommendation and providing the details for it. One of the big changes, we think a positive one, is to identify those large employers that we are seeing increasingly in Suffolk by location and a definition. So we gave them their own land use category. And I want to talk a little bit about what the thinking was behind that. And I'll be joined in this conversation by economic development staff talking in more detail about recent development trends, growth trends that led us to making this recommendation. And finally, I'll get back up and talk a little bit about some language changes that we're proposing to add some flexibility to the uses that are permitted in this zone. So I want to start with just explaining what's under that purple land use recommendation in the city in our future land use plan recommendation. So looking first at the northern growth area, again, the obvious area that you see there is the Northgate Commerce Park. Again, we generally followed M1 and M2 zoning and these types of uses and the designation in the land use plan. So that park, that Commerce Park, makes up essentially what you see in that growth area. And looking now at the central growth area, starting in the, let's say, the upper right-hand corner, I want to just walk you through the employment center uses. Again, that's that area in purple, and then share some statistics with you on what is existing in that area and what is proposed. So up at the top right, of course, is the Wilroy Road Industrial Park. Again, a largely built out community in the central growth area. If you work your way kind of clockwise down and to the east, of course, that's the SIPSA Regional Landfill, a very large facility, obviously, and the auto junkyards that are in that area as well. So again, moving clockwise, coming south and west, the large area that you see there is the Carolina Road area and the Dill Road industrial area there. So again, largely built out, zoned and developed property. Again, going up to the north and west, what you'll see there, of course, is the Center Point Commerce Park area that, again, we'll hear about some more of the details of how that has been developed. And then up again to the north is the Port 460 project there on 460. So, so what you see on this future land use map is about 86% of this area that we're calling employment center is already zoned for this use, and much of it has already been developed. So the new area that you see in the expanded growth area out 460 is about 14% of the total area. So we wanted to make it clear that while this is a future land use map, for the most part, we're recognizing areas that are already zoned and developed for that use. So with that, I want to turn this over to Dina, who's going to give you more information about those parks and sort of the trends that we've been experiencing with this land use.
Thank you, Keith. Good afternoon, Chairman and Planning Commissioners. I'm here to share with you today the evolution of industrial developments in the city of Suffolk, as well as being recommended in the comp plan to draw on and hopefully advance some thoughts for a more diverse product base and a more diverse employment base, along with some recommendations that are being made in this current comprehensive plan. On the screen, you will see Wilroy Industrial Park. Wilroy was the opportunity for the city and at the time our Industrial Development Authority to develop a master planned industrial park. Previously, if you thought about industrial operations, you thought about Planters, you thought about Lipton Tea, and if you think about where they're located, they really weren't in a good land use base. They were basically adjacent to residential areas, and everybody is just in a congested area. Railway was the first opportunity to go out, master plan a park that was led by the city as well as the authority. And it started around the 1980s with Pepsi having a facility in the park. Not long after that, Hills Brothers Coffee came in, which is now known as Massimo Zanetti. And from there, it just has become a very successful park. It has a good use of food and beverage, as well as small and large distribution companies. Again, this was an effort led at the local level with lots of local funding in order to advance the roads and just build the park out. It continued through the 90s and into the early 2000s. And again, like I said earlier, it is still thriving today. The next evolution of industrial parks took shape around the 2010 area, where private investment groups were looking to work within land use programs like our comprehensive plan and set up master plans versus just going out, finding a site, and just plopping a building on that site. And thus, this is where we really began to see our master planned sites take place. Here you will see three highlighted privately held industrial parks. Outlined in red is Virginia Commerce Park, which is off of Kenyon Road. Yellow is Virginia Port Logistics, which was previously known as Centerpoint. And then in the orange is one of our newer parks, which is known as Westport. The aerial that you see on your screen was taken in 2016. However, this park had worked previous years to people working behind the scene, just talking about rezoning the property. Plans were being made for future transportation, water, and sewer, which really fueled the services for the park and the future employers. And so this part of that evolution, where the city wasn't necessarily using our funding to drive the industrial park or be the developer, private dollars came in. They found the site and they began to do the master plan and become the developer. In the beginning, it wasn't necessarily moving at the rate that individuals were hoping, but a lot of that began to change with the supply chain shortage. The Port of Virginia's continued investment and then the 58 road widening project. It all came together over time and began to create a more attractive opportunity and narrative for folks to realize that this was industrial park and that they could come to this park and be successful. Fast forward to the aerial on the screen now is in 2024, and you can see the story is a much different scenario. We went from 4 buildings back in 2016 to now 12 buildings. Starting again with the red at Virginia Commerce Center, NFI is still the tenant in that building. However, construction is now underway on a speculative building just below. And there is one smaller tract of land that is available towards the tail end of the triangle. Jumping into the yellow highlighted area, which is Virginia Port Logistics, you can see that the Navy Exchange Command is still there, but we've also added DART Logistics. NFI has a second building in the park. Lowe's is our newest tenant, that's at the top left, and then Amazon has another facility as well in the park. We also, as we work towards 58, we'll see GXO, Emser Tile, Freont, Ace Hardware, and Massimo Zanetti also has a second location within this industrial park. So surprisingly, something that was 10 or plus years in the making has now reached its completion point. Moving south into the orange at Westport, they are getting ready to have their first tenant, which is MSI. And just below that, pad work has been started for another large structure, and that will be have completed that development as well. So in about 8 to 10 year time frame, you can see how these three parks have really shaped the 58 corridor. And this, again, was a privately owned development. Another story to share with you, and Keith mentioned it earlier, about Northgate Commerce Park, which is located off of Shoulders Hill Road and Nanceman Parkway. This is what we would call a hybrid model. The city, the Economic Development Authority, and the property owner at the time worked together to create this public-private partnership, essentially where we were able to use some local funding to build a road and pump station, and in return, we received some land in order to control future development. The first deal at Northgate was Wanchi's Fish Company and their cold storage unit. These were deals that our EDA orchestrated, and they were our first tenants for a number of years. We did have 2 other buildings that were built that were just some small flex buildings, but as you can see on the left in the 2016 photo, it was a fairly slow move to where we are in the picture to the right in 2024. We feel like what really led to this was when we teamed up with the city of Chesapeake to widen Nanceman Parkway and Portsmouth Boulevard to 664. Companies really started seeing this area as a good location, and it was really a turning point when Amazon became a tenant in the park. Along with Amazon, currently, we have Bluebell Creameries, we have Bridgman Civil, we have Virginia Carolina Civil, and Tractor Supply are all tenants at Northgate Industrial Park today. So going back to Keith's thoughts about, man, you know, there's a lot of purple on the map that he showed earlier. Can we handle that? The reality is, as you can see from my last slides, is that we are really built out, or the vast majority of our sites are built out. And so, you know, one thing to bring up as well that we feel is important are recommendations that are in the current draft plan that would make sense for the city, the EDA, or whoever the powers might be, to be able to participate in future developments. So, for example, we can control the property within the park. So taking all of this into context, you'll see recommendations in the draft plan that talk about us potentially entering into more ownership type opportunities. Let's also not forget that when we're introducing developments, we're also introducing jobs and wages. This graph shows you that employment centers will work. People are coming here, they're working here, and our long-term goals will be to continue to generate more employment with higher wages. And so with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Keith. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Dina. I really like that because it illustrates sort of the beginning to the end of the process. So the future land use plan really is the starting point. While this is just one of the many land uses that are on the future land use plan, it kind of illustrates why that first step is so important. To set those areas aside and think about the uses that are net generators of tax revenue. They pay for other services and facilities in the city, supply jobs and income for residents. So that was the purpose of that. I jotted down a note, Wilroy Road was the 1980s, so this takes time, 10, 20, years to realize this, but it's a long-term use that really brings benefits to the community. One other question around this use, and it's always a challenge when you have a land use plan like this, do you be very prescriptive and narrow in how you define the uses, or do you allow unlimited kind of flexibility in what can happen in any particular district? So one of the things we heard here was to make sure we're flexible enough in this district that if it becomes necessary down the road to adapt these big buildings into other uses, that we don't have policies that restrict that adaptation. So we actually added a secondary use to the employment center definition and talked about the value of being flexible if, in fact, those uses need to change over time. So you'll find that new language on page 50 of the document. So stepping away for a minute from the joint session with the Planning Commission and Council, I want to get back to sort of this comparison between 2035, our current plan, and 2045. So I'm going to take this in a couple of ways. One is sort of what's new in this plan, what has changed, and I'll also talk about some of the things that we've been building on really over 25 years or so that are really similar to what you find in 2035. So to me, there are four that are worth highlighting. The community engagement portion of this, the new development opportunities that came our way. We've been hearing about some of those today. I think the renewed focus on preservation of agricultural land, I'll talk about some of the recommendations there. And of course, we've already been talking about this new approach to the future land use plan. So four things that are new and really unprecedented, I think, level of effort to make sure that the community was engaged. And one of the things that everyone may not be aware of, but we actually paused this process 2 or 3 times, changed our scope, changed our schedule to allow for this additional community input in this process. So we used all the means that you see here, from focus groups to open house events and literally everything in between, to make sure that we were clear about what we were engaging in as a community, and we're hearing from as many different points of view as wanted to come and participate in the process. So we talk about this in the plan, of course, about the process. We share some of the bottom line numbers that came out of that process. But again, I think something new. And when you look back at earlier plans, they did not have this kind of commitment and time and resources dedicated to community input. What else is new? Again, we've been talking a little bit about solar today. It's a new market, as you heard from one of your earlier applicants. The long-planned and invested improvements to the port have largely come to fruition. So land uses that we weren't even thinking about before, and then the scale that we are seeing are available now. And of course, our population continues to grow. That's the city of Suffolk population. And as depending on whose list you look at, we're in that high growth category. So those things were new, and the plan reflects those changes with this growth area boundary that we're talking about. We want to make sure that whether it's employment centers or new housing opportunities, that we are setting aside land to meet those opportunities. And the benefits that this provides, we talked a little bit about job creation, expanding the city's tax base and fiscal strength, leveraging the private investments in infrastructure that come with this new development, and frankly, just having newer commercial and industrial facilities in our city really pays long-term benefits for us. We took a new approach. I'd like to say the city is taking a new approach with preserving agricultural land. As many of you are aware, in fact, you're hearing from members of the Agricultural Advisory Committee. We actually staff that group in our department. We've taken the recommendations of that group and drafted action items in the plan. The city has a new position coming on board, agricultural specialist position. And we lay out some fairly detailed recommendations in the plan. I don't want to tell this new person what to work on, but essentially we're putting some policy recommendations out there, things that we've heard from the Ag Committee and the community about how important this issue is, and where should we start, in the process of working on these things. So again, I won't go through these bullet points, but these are the things that we think are top of mind when it comes to how best to preserve agricultural land. Heard again today about the minor subdivision issues that are coming up. We've made some changes. Are there some more opportunities there? Lots of good programs around Virginia and the country to capture development rights from ag land. We want to look into those. Utility scale solar, we've heard about that some today too. We made some important ordinance improvements there. We want to keep an eye on that as that market develops. So we also sort of recognize that there's more we need to know about the economic impact of agriculture in our community and the amount of land that's available and where is it. There are a couple of different sources that can help us do that. Capturing that data, keeping it up to date is a task in itself, and so we're recommending that that be one of the strategies that we get going. So again, we think there's a new approach to this in this plan that isn't in the 2035 plan, and want to put these measures in place. I won't spend a lot of time, again, on the future land use plan. It looks very different from what you see in the 2035 plan. We think there are a lot of good reasons, and Employment Center is just one example of providing that additional predictability for everyone, including this commission, that are involved in the land use business, particularly as it changes and the community grows. We think this plan will provide much more predictability and guidance for us. So that's a quick sort of summary on the things that we think are new, important, we think, priorities for us going forward with this new plan. What have we kind of built on? Sort of the traditional things that this plan has done in the past. I'll touch on three of these here that we think we're building on going forward, including, and again, we'll hear from some of our other city departments to talk about some of the investments that are going on in buildings and infrastructure to support this smart growth, this focused growth approach. A lot of ways to talk about how diverse Suffolk really is, the 435 square miles. My favorite is we're actually two cities wrapped in a rural county. I don't know if that works for everybody else, but it's one way to kind of visualize just how diverse this community really is. This is another way that we think helps to do that. If you look at all of the land use categories on the future land use map, you find that about 83% of the land area in Suffolk would be in rural and open space uses. So still a very large portion of this city will remain in rural and open space categories, with about the flip side of that coin, about 17% of the land use, again, built out according to the future land use plan, in the more suburban and urban category. So still a very, very diverse city, and something that will continue to be a major challenge and opportunity for us going forward. We also talked about the need to preserve and protect what's special about Suffolk, and I'll just touch on a couple of those. We've talked about preservation of agricultural land. We've talked about the need to go in and update our village plans, bring those into the current time frame and the future going forward. A lot has changed since then, but I also want to spend a little bit of time on some of the good work that's going on both currently and planned for the future in terms of infrastructure investments, building investments. So I'm going to hand it over now to Christy Fisher, and she's going to walk you through a couple of slides in the area of parks and recreation, and then we'll just pick up from there. So, Christy.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Planning Commissioners. My name is Christy Fisher. I'm the Principal Planner for Parks and Recreation. In the plan, they call for active and passive spaces for community gathering, environmental protection and recreation opportunities, preserving existing green space, protecting and enhancing natural scenic areas, providing access to recreational opportunities, and supporting active lifestyles, and supporting opportunities for historic and artistic features and interpretation. On the screen, you'll see our 3 rec centers that we have today. The Bennett's Creek Rec Center is the newest one, serving the growing North Suffolk community. The recreation centers provide camps, fitness, and senior programs. We're serving all ages, and 2 locations serve meals to seniors. All of the rec centers are successful and busy. Let's see. The Suffolk Seaboard Coastline Trail, it's one of our most popular facilities that we have. As many of you know, we just received a $5.3 million grant from the federal government to finish the trail from downtown to the Chesapeake City line. We still have another segment that will go west to Kenyon Road, but by 2028, we expect for downtown Suffolk to be connected to the Chesapeake City line via the Suffolk Seaboard Coastline Trail. And as you probably know, the trail is part of a regional trail, the Southampton Roads Trail, that goes to Chesapeake, Portsmouth, Norfolk, and then to the Virginia Beach oceanfront eventually. So that will all be connected at one point. So the next steps are looking forward to connecting to what was formerly called the Birthplace of America Trail. It's now called Trail 757. And that trail will connect to Isle of Wight, to Surrey, to the ferry, and will connect in Jamestown to the Virginia Capitol Trail. So lots of exciting things are happening in Suffolk with our trail. And then some future things that we're looking for smart growth: the Lone Star Lakes Interpretive Center, the boat ramp at the former Brady's Marina, the Driver Sports Complex, a new downtown rec center, a new Holy Neck Rec Center, and an aquatic facility. Next is Gary Jones.
Thank you, Christy. I'll continue to talk about city investments via our capital program. You've heard me talk a lot about a lot of things we've been working on for a lot of years, and I'm proud to say these things have gone from the drawing board to actual construction, a lot of these things. So let me start with a couple of them. Some of the active projects we have going on. If you've had the pleasure of driving down West Washington Street and Saratoga Street the last few months, you've seen a beautiful new park starting to shape up. the Downtown Festival Park has been under construction for the last 6 months or so. And obviously, this 1.9-acre project has come out of a reuse and an opportunity we had downtown to purchase property that was damaged in the tornado. I think it was 2020, I believe it was. And we were able to come up with a plan to redevelop this to become a downtown park, and also meet one of the major initiatives in our downtown plan of open space, green space. This park will be the home to many activities, many scheduled functions, say of Parks and Recreation, whether it's a TGIF affairs or TGIF events, or whether they're holiday events. But most of the time, it's going to be public green space to be utilized by the public to for their day-to-day use to enhance their quality of life. It's funny, I was talking to Kevin Hughes the other day about this $2.5 million investment in this park, and I said, I can't think of a better bang for the buck of that $2.5 million than this park will, the impact this park will have on the quality of life of our citizens. So, great investment there. This one, we'll be having our first event there on August 3rd, which will be the celebration of the city's 50th anniversary of the merger of Suffolk and Nansemond County in 1974. So get your bell bottoms out. It's going to be a blast. That's going to bring back some memories. So we're looking forward to that one. This one's about 95% complete. So we got a few more things to do in the park, but what a wonderful addition to our downtown. Speaking of quality of life in downtown, the one underneath it, the Central Library project. Now I've shown you many renderings and how beautiful this new building is going to be, but I'm showing you now. I'm showing you some dirt. I have been waiting for this moment for a mighty long time. So I'm proud to say that the Central Library is under construction. If you go down Washington Street, it's changing rapidly. You see work going on with the Central Library. This $25.1 million city investment in this long-awaited Central Library is under construction. It'll be a 38,000 square foot, two-story facility. Once again, meeting one of the major initiatives in our downtown plan. Proud to see that one up and running. The upper right-hand corner, John F. Kennedy Middle School. This is the replacement school for the existing John F. K. Middle School. This is a 122,000 square foot facility. Now it consists of 3 buildings. The main building, which is the main school building, it's about 95,000 square feet. And then there's 2 supplemental buildings on the site to support 2 different things. A 14,000 square foot building to support their CSEP program, which is the special needs component of their educational program. And then there's also the IT and technology building. That's under construction. It's about 20% complete. This one will be opened to the public and use in the fall of 2026. The project, the last one in the bottom right-hand corner there, is another project that's under construction up in Harborview, Hampton Roads Parkway, Fire Station 11. This $12.1 million investment in this 21,000 square foot 4-bay fire station to serve the fast-growing area up in northern Suffolk in the Harborview area. As you know, we already have Station 5 and Police Precinct 2 right there on Bridge Road, probably less than 2 miles away from this, which can't keep up with the growth and the needs in that area for public safety. So this is our largest standalone station that we've built to date, 4 bays. And this will be complete and operational and in use and serving the public in April of '25. And this one is about 20% complete right now. Moving on to some future projects. And this is by no means all of them. This is a sampling of some of the things we have coming up. And I'm going to take this first one, the fire training burn building. I'm going to just take it out of the future projects to the actual active projects now. As of last week, we issued the notice to proceed to start construction on this. This project is a training facility for our fire and rescue department to provide them with the much-needed facilities to provide their own in-house training to the point where they don't have to rely on any other agencies or any other cities or municipalities for their training needs. This facility will be this first phase of this facility will be an 8,500 square foot, 4-story burn building. Now, the term burn building is a little misnomer because they do a lot more than burn training in here. They do things like rappel training. They do manhole recovery training. They do underground recovery training. So there's all kind of things they can do, and they can simulate in here. Now, one thing about this site, also, it has all the amenities around it that gives them the ability to simulate situations when they go into urban areas or into neighborhoods. With you see in that rendering, you'll see something like power poles and power lines. They'll be able to simulate all those things, those obstacles they have to work around to perform their rescues or perform their missions. This one is a $6.5 million $6.5 million investment, and it will be complete about a year from now. This time next summer, they'll be using this facility. Much needed facility. Some of the other projects, I'll talk about some of the school projects, and I talk about it in 2 categories. One is we'll start with capacity projects that will expand some of our schools. Northern Shores Elementary and Nansemond River High School will be expanded in the near future. And then there's some replacement school needs where schools have either outlived their life, they have failing infrastructure, they have program space that doesn't meet the current modern curriculum of the school system, and many other reasons why these schools need to be replaced. But some of these schools are Elephant Fork Elementary, Kilby Shores Elementary, Forest Glen Middle School, Nansemond Parkway Elementary, and John Yates Middle School. These are in various stages and various timeframes in our capital improvements plan. Another project that's been ongoing and is underway and it will be ongoing for the next couple of years is the Godwin Courthouse upgrades. We started these upgrades around 2023, and they'll be ongoing probably for the next 3 years or so. What this is the upgrades to a building, heavily used building that was built in 1998. It's currently 26 years old now. But this building is heavily used, and obviously all of its systems and finishes, and due to the growth of the staff, the building has a lot of wear and tear, and we're in the process right now of taking it in small chunks to get the building upgraded. To date, we've done things like replaced the roof on it, replaced all the HVAC equipment on it, upgraded the entire security system throughout the facility. We're in the process right now of upgrading all of the elevators. To replace or modernize each elevator costs about just a little over $200,000, and we have 5 elevators in that building, 2 public and 3 in the back of the house or secure areas of the courthouse. We have completed 3 to date. We still have 2 more to go. We're also in the process of working with all the staff over there at the courthouse to look at upgrading all of their finishes, whether it's their flooring, paint, cubicles, office furniture, to really get them upgraded. Keep in mind, all the stuff they have in there is 26 years old and have never been upgraded, so we're in the process of doing that. And we also take an opportunity when we do all of these to make better efficient use of the space there in the courthouse, to better, as the courthouse needs grows and the staff grows to accommodate the needs of the city, the growing city, then we are trying to get more efficient with the use of space and creating space to support the staff needs that need to happen there. And last but not least is police training facility. We have allocated $1.5 million down at the old Whaleyville Community Center, which is directly behind Fire Station 8 in Whaleyville. That's now the training facility for police. They have already started using that. We built the simulator setup in there for them, probably a little over a year and a half they've been using that. We'll be designing in the next couple of months with them the reuse of a lot of that space in there for administrative needs, additional training space in there. And that will be, we'll have that design finished around the end of the year and get some of those improvements done by about this time next year. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Patel to talk about public utilities.
Thank you, Gary. Good afternoon, Chairman Singleton, Planning Commissioners. As I said before you, Gary's a hard act to follow with some of the high-profile projects that he brings to fruition. But I want to pivot to public utilities and what smart growth means for public utilities. I think as I sat there and I listened to Dina, she did a very nice job of illustrating what occurred out on 58 at Holland Road at Westport and Port Logistics, where there was investments made in the past to have the utilities there when the development got there. So that's the balancing act, and I'm going to talk about balance in a couple of different contexts with respect to public utilities. One is balancing system improvement costs with minimizing rate impacts. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that we don't want to overbuild the infrastructure and get too far ahead of ourselves to where we increase our utility rates and then we don't have a use for that infrastructure at that time. Also talk about balancing construction timing, for example, with water quality. Great example of that would be not building, really trying to correctly time the development and the construction of a large diameter water transmission line. For example, we're going to talk about in a little bit down Route 460. Don't want to build that too far in advance because if you get that water in that large pipeline, it tends to age. Age is not a friend to water. The disinfectant residual goes away, and then we've got some bad water that we have to flush out of there. So trying to balance all those things to put the right infrastructure in the ground at the right time. Development's a good thing, though. It allows for system expansion. How do we benefit from from development? Well, one way illustration is from the revenue that we gain from the water and sewer availability charges. Illustration of that is when we budget in our yearly operating budget, we estimate the amount of ERUs, that stands for equivalent residential unit, think of maybe one household. And those are units that are added to our system every year. So for example, with our availability charges that are on our fee schedule, say we only budgeted 100 ERUs, we would only gain about $1.1 million in revenue from that on a yearly basis, where if we budgeted 550 and actually realized those units were input and attached to our system, which we did realize last fiscal year, it would be $6.3 million. So that almost $5.2 million difference is money that we use not only to fund future improvements in our system, but also to pay down the debt that we've already incurred in putting assets into the ground. I wanted to highlight a couple of things, future projects. When we talk about balancing infrastructure with growth, these are three key projects that currently we're looking at planning in the CIP process. The G. Robert House Water Treatment Plant, that's the City of Suffolk's water treatment plant up in the Chuckatuck borough of the city. We are looking at, within the next 6-7 years, expanding that 4 to 5 million gallons a day, adding capacity to that plant to make sure that we have adequate capacity to pick up the development that's occurred and really be able to support the water needs of the city. So that would be adding additional capacity. These are the projects I've got listed up here. These tend to be pricey projects. The water treatment plant expansion project, we just went through what I wouldn't call an expansion. I actually just completed it within the last few weeks. We went and we replaced a full set of EDR membranes. Remember, I may have talked about this in the past. That stands for electrodialysis reversal. Allows us to pull fluoride out of the water so we can get it to within drinking water regulations. We replaced 5 treatment trains of those with construction costs, consultant costs, and material costs. That's a $6 million project. So that's a pricey project, and we didn't even add any capacity to the plant. So the second bullet that I have up here is really to expand that to a 4 to 5 million gallon a day expansion. The last two are water transmission main projects. So these are pipelines, large diameter pipelines. One would be the Southern Water Transmission Main, which would come down. Part of that's already in place a little bit further up north near our treatment plant. That would come down from the water treatment plant and connect down to Route 460 to bring some more water capacity down to the Route 460 area. And then the last one would be a Route 460 water main expansion going from the city out to Isle of Wight, not only to support their development needs, but also the development needs along the Route 460 corridor. So those are all in the planning stages. Again, these tend to be the more expensive projects. Pipeline costs have really gone up, supply chain issues, labor costs. So those are some of the things we're looking at. But again, going back to my earlier slide, trying to balance the planning and the execution of those projects with the need for them. So with that, I'll turn this back over to Robert.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. One of the items that's always at the forefront as we talk about growth in our city is transportation. So what I'd like to share with you first is this slide. This is actually produced each year or every couple of years by the Regional Transportation Planning Organization. And this is a snapshot of growth and congestion in our region. And you can see the roads that have yellow, there's some moderate congestion, the roads that have red. And again, we're certainly much better off than the cities to our east, but there is some areas. This is the afternoon snapshot, the PM, so this is worst case. And you'll see there are some areas in our city where there's some congestion starting to show up. What's interesting, you'll note, is that also corresponds with where our growth boundaries are. So that's where our growth is occurring, and that thereby additional congestion is coming along from that. What's really interesting now is we overlay on that our transportation improvement program. Where are we building projects? Where are we expanding roads? Where are we fixing bridges? Where are all those things going on? And almost exclusively, they correspond with this same overlay here, whether the improvements are being done, where the congestion is being experienced, and where the growth is occurring. I believe I've mentioned this before, but I'll mention again, it's very important. It's a really, really wonderful idea to say we should build infrastructure before we need it. The reality in today's world is we are always competing for funding on both the national and the state level to be able to build infrastructure. And one of the interesting aspects is, and one of those key things is 40% of the justification of any transportation project in our region today is driven by transportation. By congestion. So if you don't have congestion, you're probably not going to get money. Now, we'll tell you over the last few years, the city, we have been very, very fortunate. We have been very aggressive in reaching out both on the federal level and on the state level and leveraging our local funds to bring a lot of infrastructure money in. We built a lot of roads. We built a lot of bridges. Just 10 years ago, we had about 25 bridges that were failing. They had weight limits on them. They had issues. We're down there to only 5 bridges left that have any weight restrictions on them. And those 5 at this point, up until July the 1st, did not qualify for this improvement program. The state has since changed those regulations, and now those 5 apply. So our goal is in the next 2 or 3 years to hopefully get the rest of those bridges off the inventory and have a clean system with no bridge restrictions, and then try to stay ahead and maintain. But again, I'll just note for you the things we're doing, the 460 corridor, the 58 corridor, all of those were being very effective in competing for these transportation dollars because of the fact there is a need. Without a need, it's very hard to justify that. And with that, I believe Keith is coming back to conclude.
Right, well, thanks again to our department heads. And again, illustrating this point, getting back to why do we do a comprehensive plan? It's both about how you grow the growth boundary and the land uses, but how closely that is related to your investments in infrastructure, both a driver of cost, a source of revenue, and that coordination makes that system so much more cost effective and efficient. And that coordination will go forward as long as we are planning that growth area boundary and making decisions about how we want that land use to develop. So moving on now to the implementation actions in the plan, sort of the bottom line, what do we get to work on? What do we prioritize going forward? This plan does include a chapter which identifies 40 or so action items. I've identified a couple of those here for you and that we've been talking about this afternoon, specifically the ones that are prioritized as ongoing activities or immediate activities around transportation, protecting the areas in Suffolk like downtown and the villages going forward, looking at affordable housing opportunities, things that we can do to advance affordable housing, as well as agricultural preservation. Again, those are kind of on our short list. Here are a couple of items related to the zoning ordinance amendments that we'd like to get underway. There are a couple of things I'll just have to change because we're calling future land uses by different names, so we'll go back in and make sure those documents are continuing to speak to each other. Other kinds of things, we talked about the master transportation plan that we believe is important. We've talked about the close relationship to how you grow and the revenues that you generate and the need for that balance of land uses to pay for the services required going forward, updating our master plans and historic village plans. And so all that is part of this document, and one that we feel comfortable recommending to you all today going forward. We've talked about this as a unique and pretty significant undertaking for our community, a commitment of time and resources, and a specific recommendation and a responsibility for this commission and city council. We've talked about the expanding community engagement efforts that were a big part of bringing this plan forward to you. We've talked about building on the good work that was done by previous plans and previous councils and planning commissions, but also responding to current and future challenges and opportunities that we see today that we want to plan for going forward. So, as well as some of those priority actions to implement going forward down the road. So this is what we have planned in the immediate future. Again, we briefed you all on this in June 18. The draft plan has been available for folks to review online since June 19. Of course, the public hearing today. We will be briefing City Council tomorrow afternoon in one of their work sessions and preparing for a City Council public hearing on August 21. So again, that concludes the formal presentation. Mr. Chairman, we'll stand by for any questions or comments that you all have for us. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy, and I'd like to thank you and your staff and all of the departments heads for all the work that you put into this document. I've been on this planning for a few years, and there's been more input from the public and more information given to us during the process than in the previous years. It probably combined the other ones is equal to, not quite equal to what has been done this time. So I want to thank you again for all your efforts. We're going to open the public hearing, and I think we had, I don't think there'll be any more input from the proponents part of this from staff, but we'll open up, and if anyone have any other additional comments before we open up for the opponents. Hearing none, seeing none, I will open for the I've got 15 minutes for the opponents, for anyone that have any oppositions or want to make some comments. Just give us your name, please.
Sir, Commissioner Singleton and Commissioners. My name is Chess Harris. I live at 323 Tyndall's Court on the North Suffolk Peninsula. I work with the Suffolk Peninsula Community Partnership. It's comprised of 6 homeowners associations, civic leagues, and community groups that are on the North Suffolk Peninsula. Over 1,200 single-family homes, over 3,000 Suffolk residents. We are the residents that call the peninsula home. It's the land between Chuckatuck Creek and the Nasman River bridges in the North Growth area, page 42 on your comp plan. Our partnership teams action critical city-level issues supporting all 6 community groups. We ask that you remove the land between the bridges. The island on your map that's up in the northern growth area, removing it from the northern growth area. We know growth is needed. We fully embrace the great requirement and champion the application of smart growth. Smart growth must move, and it has to be done, but here it's a critical issue. For the city has no plans to provide any critical infrastructure for residents or businesses in place today. That must be resolved before any significant new growth in this growth plan is even considered. Let's look at the comprehensive growth plan for a minute. Transportation, no plan to fix the bridges. Weekly, we can't even exit our communities to get on Route 17 because of massive traffic backups caught between the bridges. One major accident anywhere, and it can be up to 5 hours before you get out of gridlock. The accident with the Food Lion truck on the Godwin Bridge, the accident on 58, the two others that happened just within the past couple of weeks. Hours you can't even get over the bridge. We were working with Chief Spicer to understand how casualty evacuation, emergency services, and hurricane evac are even going to happen on Route 17, the alternate evacuation route for zones A, B, C. It's not there. Services. Our villages and some development businesses remain on septic tanks. There's no plan for the city to remedy these issues and enable a baseline for growth to grow. Land use. Early city planners for our city of Suffolk did it right by zoning codes, focusing on small parcels across our area for neighborhood commercial, B1, and offices served by our now 18 small businesses and 3 churches, all complementing the single-family home development requirements. This past November, we were asked by Commissioner Fawcett to identify what are the B1 and O&I businesses our residents really see as complementing the growth in this area, provided to him and to the city staff. First step in documenting smart growth is input from residents. This past April, we provided the city a draft growth plan for our area as part of the April submission for the comp plan review. Resident input, again, the first step in smart growth. But you cannot have significant start until the city provides the infrastructure for residents and businesses in place today on septic. So why document in the comp plan a false perception of our land between the bridges as part of a northern growth area? Do you really envision the extension of Harborview and Bridgeport framework into these fully developed single-family home communities? And the little B1 and O&I parcels that are there? We understand by right. We want development there. But it's got to be based on an infrastructure that's got to be in place first, because developers aren't going to put it there for them. They'll take care of the development piece, but all that infrastructure that's needed now, the city's got to fix. So let's do smart growth with a city-community partnership where resident input is truly the first step, not at the back end like we tried with the Royal Farms Cup. We want to grow. We want it to be responsible. We want it to be disciplined, smart growth for our community. Keep the northern growth area focused on the main effort. Bridgeport, Harborview, we got it. We've formally submitted these comments and recommendations verbally to the planning staff and the leadership of the city at the open houses, and likewise in formal written format in response to these comp plans. We ask your consideration on that point. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name's Denise Murden, and I'm here today representing Citizens Voice, an organization here in the community. Since February, we've been going around to different community events, talking to many members of the community about the comp plan. And we also appreciate the city's efforts in getting so much citizen input on what is probably the most important plan for our city's growth. But let's make that citizen input count now. We would like to have a document that shows the changes that were made. And we're recommending that someone submit a motion tonight that would table this vote and keep this hearing open until we have a document that shows all the changes that were made. It's a standard practice of accountability in government to track your changes that are made to such an important document. And this is one way of precluding any future misunderstandings and disputes. It's not enough for the city staff to simply tell us that the substantive changes that they've made are on 3 pages of the draft. and expect us and our elected and appointed representatives to go on a scavenger hunt through that document to find out what has changed. We have found other changes, and one of them is an addition on page 68 that recommends amending city regulations to provide for exceptional growth opportunities outside of the growth boundaries. That may or may not be a good idea, but we think it's one that ought to have some public airing and discussion. And there are more changes to the document that have been found, but we don't know that we found them all because we're trying to compare two very lengthy documents. I'm wondering if they used any citizen input on the first draft. I personally submitted an editorial correction on page 31 where their references to the inset maps are incorrect. That change wasn't made, and I personally talked to a staff member about it. Citizens put a lot of time and effort into providing input on this first draft, and there were several directions given at the May 1st Planning Commission and City Council meeting for changes that City Council members wanted to see. None of us can make informed decisions on this lengthy, detailed document without clearly seeing how that first draft changed. I also asked for printed copies for our organization, which were provided when the first draft was submitted, and I was denied those copies. As much of this public review as can be done should be done at this level, at the Planning Commission level, so that the most important issues are what go before our City Council. How do we assess some of the issues that were brought up at that meeting about affordable housing, the economic impacts on our agricultural community and its contributions, and the better transparency of wetlands was another thing I heard at that meeting. I actually did send an email to the mayor, and he was good enough to return my call about this situation, and he agrees that we should have a copy that shows the changes that were made, and he had previously agreed when he met with members of the Citizens Voice Board that it was reasonable that citizens and the City Council and Planning Commission members have 60 days to review that document. We really don't have a document that we can review. So I'm just going to close by again asking that someone make a recommendation that this vote be tabled and this hearing be kept open until we have a document that we can truly compare to the first draft in an informed way. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Planning Commission. My name is Ann Harris. I live at 2455 Lake Cahoon Road, and I'm here speaking on behalf of Care for Suffolk. There's a lot of reasons why replacing the current comprehensive plan would be a mistake right now. I agree with much of what was said by Ms. Murden. There's been a lot of changes that were not annotated or addressed publicly. Aside from the fact that there's just drastic increases in growth area and changes to the land use, which has been clearly acknowledged by staff, both in the work sessions and today, these changes do call for pretty big increases in residential development, increases in density, and substantial increases in industrial areas. And we already lead Hampton Roads in the warehousing and distribution center area. You all and City Council expressed concerns about the size of the growth areas. So city staff subsequently did reduce the size of the growth areas, but then as Ms. Murden pointed out, they added new language to the new draft that would allow for development outside the growth areas anyways. And they've also mentioned that there are some specific potential sites that they're considering on that same page. So we feel that this new policy that was added is a strategy for actually forming a growth area around chosen sites instead of choosing sites within the set growth area. This is not focused growth, and it undermines the concerns expressed by you and City Council and the citizens. Additionally, this new plan includes a list of 54 transportation projects, 34 of which are not funded, The state requires a transportation plan to be included with a comprehensive plan. However, they've decided to postpone this. We're not sure exactly when that will be completed. The draft plan also includes a policy that says we should develop financing options for expanding utilities to support development. We were told we don't need a fiscal impact analysis, but the city is looking to expand development into rural areas at the taxpayer's expense. We just heard them discuss how expensive these projects were going to be, how hard it is to get funding, and how we basically need to increase our congestion before we can get that funding. So we feel that lacking the fiscal impact analysis and the transportation plan are key things that really need to be considered. Part of the comprehensive plan process that we've been going through includes the review. The requirement is to review the comp plan and amend it if needed. There's no requirement to create a whole new plan, and we can continue operating under our current plan if necessary. So we just think this is about the future of Suffolk. We really just would like you to really consider if you really feel comfortable moving forward with this plan, lacking significant components such as the fiscal analysis and the master transportation plan. So if you decide not to keep this hearing open, we ask that you just vote no to this draft and we can operate under the one we currently have. Thank you.
Jason Woodard, I guess I got 2 minutes left. I just want to commend the city on what a wonderful presentation we've got. We've talked about a lot of fabulous projects. We're spending a lot of money, and we're going to get a lot of return on our investment from those projects. The comp plan that we have right now, the 2035 plan, is kind of what's driving that, because we don't have this 2045 plan in place. So we're already growing, and we don't need, there's no state mandate, there's no law that says we need to have a new comp plan by X amount of time. So I don't really know what the hurry is about this. I've heard two things today that very, very much kind of reflect in on what I'm concerned about. I've heard multiple times that the magnitude of this comprehensive plan needs to be stressed to this city. I'm going to say it again. The magnitude of this plan is such that we have spent an enormous amount of time, received an enormous amount of public input, and spent an enormous amount of public money, yet at the last minute we are changing things and then trying to rush to a vote. It's not wise. I saw one of the slides and it got me very interested. One of the slides looked at the average salary growth between, I think it was 2016 and 2023 here in the city of Suffolk. Somewhere around $46,000 to up to $60,000. Right now, the U.S. current average median income is $59,384 a year. Virginia, average income, $65,820. Virginia Beach, $61,143. The rising tide is what's causing the growth that you saw on that presentation here. It's not due to the economic growth and the growth of the city. It's just natural, and it's naturally occurring here in Virginia. So this comprehensive plan that's been presented, my concern, we don't have a financial impact study. What are we grasping at? What tells us why we should have this little growth or this much growth? There's nothing there. As an engineer, as a design engineer and a private contractor for a government, we do financial and assessments on everything that we do as we bring projects together. You all are trying to engineer the city without a financial impact study. That is incredibly unwise. And I know it's been a lot of effort to this point, but to move forward without telling yourself and telling the citizens how changing the growth of our city, the plan to grow our city, is going to financially impact them, that's just not right. As a personal citizen standing right here, I don't understand how you're going to make a change on a plan without understanding how it's going to financially impact me as well as yourself. Thank you very much.
Give us your name again, please.
I'm sorry. Jason Woldridge, resident 4580 of Desert Road.
That ends the time for the public hearing. Is there anyone else in the audience would like to speak if the opportunity presented itself? Hearing none, I will now close the public hearing. Keith, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Mr. Chairman, as I was frantically taking notes, I think I'll touch on a couple of things. One is, as you all know, we've been receiving public input for a long time, for about 2 years, and looking to balance that input has been our job, and build on it as we go on. I don't think I heard anything new tonight from the comments that you all heard. A couple of things I think are worth focusing on. The master transportation plan that we're recommending is above and beyond the comp plan requirements in state code. As I mentioned earlier, if you're a growing community, the planning that's required in state code for the comp plan related to transportation may not be enough for you. So many growing communities choose to go to additional detail, to focus on transportation like they might focus on a Parks and Recreation master plan or a schools master plan. So I don't think it's accurate to say that we've sort of punted that requirement with this recommendation. We meet the requirements, and we're suggesting that it might be valuable to do additional work. A comment was made about some new language that hadn't appeared in the plan regarding rezonings for unique projects that actually is in the current plan, the 2035 plan. So again, we feel confident, Mr. Chairman, that this plan is better than the 2035 plan. We think it recognizes challenges and opportunities that the community faces today, and will take us into the future in a much more effective way than the current document that we have right now. Any specific questions or comments that you would like for me to react to, I'd be happy to do that.
When we close the public hearing, we'll bring you back up for that.
Okay.
Close the public hearings. Commissioners, questions, comments on motion?
I just have a comment, I guess. After reviewing this plan that we've talked about, 161 pages worth, plus the comments that we received over the past 2 years, gets back to the basic plan. It's clear that looking out over the next 20 years, and we're talking about from now until 2045, there are a lot of issues, both internal and external, that we really can't control, particularly the external issues regarding finance. Some of the things in here that we've discussed, transportation and all of that sort of thing. We've heard about the transportation issues. We really have no way of knowing what the economy is going to be going and how it's going to affect Suffolk and other areas adjacent to ours, how this will impact. So, but the plan itself has to be flexible to the point of being able to accommodate this over the next few years. It's not chiseled in stone. I mean, even though we've got this document here, it's a working document. It will be working over the next 20 years. And we will have the opportunity every 5 years to go over, the city will have that opportunity to go over this plan. So there are a number of things that the citizens have brought up about what everybody feels like it should be in there, including myself, and also the other members of this commission, and also the council. Yes, there are a lot of things that could be in this plan, but right now it's a plan, and you're going to probably hear that from the mayor because he's talked about this many times about plan, and we have to have a roadmap. This is a roadmap. That's my comment.
Any other comments, questions?
Mr. Chairman, I too would just like to make a few comments. And Keith and your staff, y'all have done a fantastic job. I went to most of the citizen meetings and listened in to the concerns that the citizens have. Came down to, several points that the citizens were really hot on, which was the agricultural, loss of agricultural properties, transportation, and the physical impact. Like my fellow commissioner, there are, and the mayor, who has pointed out at many times this is just a plan. I'd like it to be a little more than that, but it is what it is. I am, as a representative of the Holy Neck Borough, concerned about the loss of agriculture. In an earlier meeting, one of our commissioners talked about that was not as financially rewarding as some others, but it still is a big financial part of our city. So I still have a concern about the additional area that will be subject to commercial and residential development that would lose prime agricultural properties. The transportation at our joint session, I asked Keith if where we would be and what kind of timeline we might have for a master transportation plan. I'm concerned that it's not addressed in the comprehensive plan. I'm glad that it's been pointed out, and I think the steering committee probably brought that out as a prime concern for moving forward on the comprehensive plan. So that's my comments. Thank you.
Forward, what we're going to do with it.
Can I make some comments?
Make comments and make a motion, do.
Don't hold your breath. First and foremost, I want to thank Aaron Deers personally and publicly. I know Keith is kind of the face of the whole thing, but every time you go to these workshops and things, Aaron is in the back. Aaron is out giving out cards. Aaron has been the backbone of this whole thing the whole time. And Keith, we appreciate you, but I want to make sure I said something public for Aaron because, she's always there. So I want to thank you for your hard work. I was here in 2015 when we did the last one. It was my second year on the commission, and I have no shame in admitting I did not know what in the world was going on back in 2015 when they showed us the green 2035 plan, and I sat there and I nodded and I went along to go along. One of the sad things I will say about the 2035 plan is I don't think we ever gave the 2035 plan a chance to materialize. I think we voted on a plan, and then when it was time to implement the plan as it was presented, politics got in the way, not in my backyard got in the way, and a lot of things that the plan was supposed to do, it never was given a chance because of the political realities on the ground. And I know that's something that we don't always talk about and we don't always go straight forward with it, but we never really saw what 2035 really could do because even when you look at a lot of the rezonings and things that we have, one of the key things we keep hearing is this is much lower than the densities that are suggested in this area because the development community realized that we did not have the courage to express our plan to the extent that it was supposed to be expressed in. And this started at the very beginning of the 2035 plan. So if we're going to go back and revisit and say, we need to keep 2035 as is, we never seen 2035 as is. We received a very generic version of 2035 since we've had it. It took me a while to really like this one. I really like the use districts. I mean, I like the use districts a lot. But talking to Kevin and talking with the staff, I understand the predictability. And I've come around to liking the new ones that's been added. You know, in regard to employment centers, you know, we just built a real nice road, and it's been a whole lot of orange cones. And everywhere where we have all these orange cones and we've been inconvenienced, we basically said we built out. So we did all this building of a road, and we're not really maximizing because we're shrinking it in. So, and then, you know, on top of that, then we taking it into 460, we shrunk 460. So a lot of the people in the community who are saying you haven't been heard, you changed public policy. And that's a fact now. You changed public policy. This plan was supposed to be a lot more aggressive, and because of your activism, it has changed. And I salute you. And I always say this, because I started out on that side of the table. And I know how it feels to get 5 minutes and you're scared to death, and I stutter. You know, I guess y'all don't believe what I do. I stutter in real life. In real life. I stutter in real life. But when you get up there and you saw these people, 8 people on this side of the table looking down at you, and you trying to figure out what you want to do, it is frustrating. So yeah, I understand where y'all coming from, and I always, you know, have y'all support. But I want to say it again. You changed public policy. This plan is not the plan that I thought was going forward, and your activism changed it. Last thing I want to say. The Horseshoe Cafe went down. And, you know, a lot of you all, it's maybe not important to a lot of people in Suffolk. But on the side of the track that I came from when I grew up, Horseshoe Cafe was a big deal. It was a place of, and I was born in the 80s, so I missed the Horseshoe in its heyday. You know, I'm an 80s baby. But I remember Miss Pearl and the old Horseshoe. The Horseshoe is gone. It's knocked down. It's gone. And one of the things that has really been on my mind since the Horseshoe went down is we build a world for the living. And we build a world for a foundation for the future. I'm not going to solve every issue of my, well, other than that, I don't have any children, so I'm not going to solve every problem for the next generation. I can't solve every problem for them. What I can do is take the problems that I have in front of me and do the best I can, because guess what I know? My job is to build a foundation. It's your job to take them here. And I say this, and excuse me for taking so much time, but this is important. I mean, this whole comprehensive plan is important because everything we're about to do going forward is based off this document. This is why we do this, is this document. So if anything we need to agree on and have a real discussion on is this. One of my favorite things in American history was the fact that when the Founding Fathers came together in 1776, is they understood that America had a lot of problems in 1776. You fast forward the table, the tape is 1787. They knew America still had a whole lot of problems. But guess what them guys got together and said? Our job is to build a country. We can't solve every problem that America's gonna face when you're trying to build a country. Our job is to build a country strong enough so when the next generation comes on the scene, they'll deal with the stuff that we can't deal with to build a country. Same thing with Suffolk. You know, when you go back and look at everything that you read in this year with what Jim Callis and all these people, Bobby Ralph and Mills Godwin and Mayor Hope and all these people when they brought this city together from a county to a city and meshed it all together. Hey man, it took us 50 years to get here. The best thing that's happened in Suffolk since Mr. Obersey came was Northern Suffolk and Harbor View and that whole area. It changed us. And for so many people in our city, that's been going on for about 30 years, and most people have never even went up there to see it. And now that what's been going on there for 30 years is starting to come down here, we have all this agitation. No one cared when Huntersville was pushed aside, Resmus Beach was put aside, Pewsville was pushed aside. But now we have all this activism and all this anger. So this is what I want to say about that. We're not going to solve every problem for our city in this plan. This plan just starts the conversation. And so my challenge, and I said this earlier to my commissioners, if we're going to agree on anything, we need to agree on this one. So I don't mind tabling it if we all have some disagreements. But this is one time we all need to be on the same page on what we gonna do. Because I do not like sending city council hot potatoes or anything. This can't be 7-1, this can't be 7-2. This is not Holy Ghost Church conditional use. We need to be on the same page on this one. So, I said all that to say this. Mr. Chairman, I move for the approval of the 2045 comprehensive plan. So help us God.
And I second it, and I strive for unanimous decision.
I don't think there's any more discussion on the motion. Mr. Wine, would you call for the vote, please?
He said it all.
Sir. Commissioners, please vote. Mr. Chairman, the motion is approved by a vote of 7-1.
Go to City Council on August 21st with a recommendation from this body for approval. And the next item on our agenda is old business. I don't think we have anything old.
Yes, sir.
And new business, I think we had some motions coming from the ordinance committee.
Yes, Chairman, we would like to have 2 items put on our, I believe it's August 20th agenda for consideration for ordinance text amendments, one dealing with Village Center zoning district dimensional standards, and the second item, bar and nightclub regulations. Sure. First one being Village Center zoning district dimensional standards. We would recommend that we have a presentation on that before the Planning Commission on August 20th, 24.
You have a second? Second. All in favor?
If I could just get clarification of the motion, is this just a presentation or is this a public hearing?
This is a public hearing.
Okay.
Second item would be a public hearing on bar and nightclub regulations, and we would request that they be a public hearing for ordinance text amendment dealing with that on August 20th, 24.
Discussion on the motion? To do this with a voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Status report from City Council, Mr. Wine.
Yes, sir. On July 2nd, City Council heard a few of the items that went before you all back in May, actually. So these came before you all quite a while ago. the exception of the first one, which they had deferred. But the Pitch Kettle Landing rezoning, that is RZN 2023-005 for the townhome units along Pitch Kettle near the bypass, that was approved with the proffers as presented by the applicant. One change that you all did not see related to the proffers, there was a phasing schedule that they provided as a part of some revised proffers that City Council considered and was satisfied with. Conditional use permit CUP 2024-005 Hope City Church. That was for a church at 540 East Constance Road, approved with the conditions. And then the ordinance text amendment related to the cluster design standards. Those were approved by City Council at their July 2nd meeting.
Can you clarify that one with the phasing? Which one was that?
That was the Pitch Kettle Landing rezoning on just north of Pitch Kettle Road, on Pitch Kettle Road at the bypass, Route 58. This came before you all previously in April.
Okay, that was the development.
On development. Ultimately, they are rezoning to RC conditional to construct up to 335 townhome units.
Thank you. Commissioners, comments? I know Commissioner
I mean,
Evans
no.
don't have it. Any comments from the commissioners? Okay. If there's no comments, I want to thank you for your time and your effort. You have something?
Yeah, a couple things. One, thank you all so much for your diligent consideration of the comprehensive plan. It has been quite a process. Keith and staff have put in a tremendous amount of work going back 2.5 years now. It's been quite a long time. And I know that none of these decisions are made in a vacuum. And there's a lot of thought up here at this dais, and we really appreciate all the hard work that each of y'all put in making informed decisions. Second, I know that your laptops have continued to be an issue and a headache. Trust that we're working with our IT department. Recently, we've done a migration to Microsoft 365, meaning everything lives in the cloud. I appreciate it because that means my email is not over every single day capacity. However, there are some issues as it relates to the two-factor verification. We're working with IT. I know IT is also working with Human Resources on identifying ways to make that easier, particularly for you as a board who do not have city, well, you do have city email addresses, but you don't have city phones, things like that. So we will provide you some additional information on how to proceed moving forward, but hopefully we can solve that one. That's it.
No other comments? We stand adjourned. Thank you.